Start recording.
Recording in progress.
Anyone, just shut the videos off if anyone, or people that are unmuted, mute them, because that's what happens. Like he somehow is not connected yet. And a wrap. Okay. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 23rd Conservation Meeting. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and allowing us to adhere to social distancing requirements for the COVID-19 crisis, this Town of Reading Conservation Commission is being held virtually via Zoom for audio and video participation of conservation commissioners, applicants, representatives, and the public. During this meeting, myself or the chair will unmute commissioners, applicants, representatives, and the public individually and as needed. During the conservation meeting, the chair and the administrator will be the only ones permitted to share video. These controls are in place to ensure that tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, the chair will conduct a roll call vote, confirming that all members are present and can hear. Sheriff Scanlon.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm going to go through the roll call order. Please remember this. I will prompt you if you happen to forget. John Sullivan.
John Sullivan, member present.
Andrew.
Andrew Driven, member present.
Brian.
Brian Bowe, member present.
Martha.
Martha Moore, vice chair, present.
And I'm going to admit Joe and ask him to join the order. Joe, welcome to the meeting. We're going through roll call order. Martha just said she was present. I'm going to ask you to chime in.
Joe Carnahan, member present.
Welcome. So
Thank
you're
you,
after
everyone.
Martha and Anika Scanlon present.
Thank you, everyone. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Also be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by this recording. All of the materials for this meeting is available on the Conservation Division site, and it's a new page now, but it's still on the Conservation Division page. And I recommend that commission members and the public follow the agenda as posted on the Town of Reading webpage unless otherwise noted. However, because this meeting is being conducted remotely, I advise applicants in particular that the commission cannot discuss or consider documents which were not previously posted. Information may, however, be presented orally. Similarly, members of the public are encouraged to provide written comments, but should understand that not all participants nor the commission members will be able to see any of these written comments during the course of this meeting. Before we get started on tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for effective, clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After the commissioners make their remarks, and these remarks have been addressed by the applicant, the chair will afford the public comments as followed. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name. Once the chair has a list of public commentators, the chair will call each one by name and afford them 4 minutes for any comment. The applicant may be requested to respond by the chair or the conservation administrator. After public comment, the chair will once again go down the list of commissioners, inviting each one by name to provide further comment, question, or motion. Please hold off until your name is called. Finally, as a reminder, each vote taken during the course of this meeting tonight will be conducted by roll call. That's what I have, Chair Scanlon.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Thank you very much. So looking at the agenda, the first public hearing scheduled is for 1310 Main Street. That is continued to April 13 at the applicant's request. So there's no discussion on that. Go ahead, Chuck.
So I have a request from to fill this spot. And there will be a motion from the chair to fill the spot with a report from or a discussion with Ryan Percival for the drainage permit and to understand.
Okay, Chuck, you, at least for my audio, you cut out kind of quiet at the end there. I'll reiterate what I believe you said. What we're going to do is, since we have a gap at the beginning of our agenda, and there's some town business and town staff here to discuss it with us, we're going to take our agenda slightly out of order. We're going to take some old new business pertaining to the engineering department, and have Ryan talk to us about some business he needs to talk to us about. So Ryan, welcome. I'm going to ask you to unmute and bring up what you'd like to talk about.
Thank you, Nika. Can everyone hear me all right? That's coming through.
It's a little crackled.
Yeah, I'm getting that on my end too. Is that better?
Yes.
Fine.
Okay. As Chuck had mentioned, we had a townwide permit for stormwater maintenance purposes that has since lapsed. I think we had missed our opportunity to file for an extension on that permit. However, we were in front of this commission maybe about a year and a half ago with the last extension. And the conversation that we had at that point was maybe to just look back over that permit to see if there's any opportunity, make any changes as we see fit on either Chuck's end or our end. And so since we have the opportunity now where our permit has lapsed, the intent would be to file, or at least try to file, another NOI for another maintenance permit. That being said, you know, Chuck and I have had this discussion on what are some of, at least for him to get his head wrapped around, what are some of the things that are day-to-day maintenance that are within the roadway that we basically do weekly. And, you know, those things, as I'm developing the list, which I don't have finalized, but looking back in the prior order of conditions, those were also listed in there as well. And I think it's a pretty extensive list on what we do, but just to go over them briefly, it was general, say, pipe cleaning, jetting, vacuuming, catch basin repair of the grate, rebuilding of the grates. Same thing with manhole repairs, spot repairs on some of the drain lines, some small drain extensions on the piping or replacement within the roadway, and things of that nature. And then there was, I think, listed in there as well was hand cleaning out some of the ditches of debris less than 2 inches. Anything greater than 2 inches was a conversation with the commission, or at least the conservation agent at that time. So those are some of the things that we'll have to work through, and I think it's a good opportunity for Chuck and I to have that conversation. But again, as we stand, that order of conditions has lapsed, so we'll have to address that.
Okay. In the interim, between now and when the new permit comes in, what's the process to communicate, work, and at least stay in contact with Chuck about what's happening and what types of projects you guys are undertaking?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I know Chuck at least has is it a monthly meeting, Chuck, with DPW?
Monthly meeting.
Yeah. Okay. we may have to up that to be more frequent, at least before we get issued another permit, if that's possible. I know, Chuck and I have discussed, really when we get down to it, what's the day-to-day maintenance things that he can get a handle on that maybe he can become more comfortable with. So we'll have to have that conversation with the highway department and the DPW director, assistant DPW director. And I assume that we'll do that. I mean, we can make use of that monthly meeting, but I think in the sense that we're going to be ramping up operations for maintenance, we'll have to have that meeting quickly, at least to get our heads wrapped around that daily maintenance. And then from there, what I think, once we have that conversation and we find out where the comfort level is, we'll have to find out what needs to be communicated every single day, or what needs to be communicated when it happens, what things really is of no interest that they're comfortable with, where we're not sending sediment or debris down a line or things of that nature, like cleaning out a catch basin with a catch basin cleaning truck, for that matter. That's a maintenance activity that we have to do under the MS4 permit. So, that's a good example of something that Chuck probably does not want to know every single day that we go out and do. So things like that. And I think that's an easy lift for us to do. We have the old permit that was, I was reading through it, and it was, I think the last time George Zamboris had written it, and it was really thorough, had gone through it, it really only labeled really minor impactful stuff that didn't need to come in front of the commission. Everything else had to go in front of the commission. So cleaning out of ditches by mechanical means or anything greater than 2 inches was supposed to come in front of the commission. And so I think we'll go through that permit as well and kind of vet that out when we're trying to do the NOI. And Chuck, we had talked today. I think this is a good opportunity to make this more of a collaborative process on, maybe we address some of these issues that we may have had in the past and work with the highway supervisor directly so they understand what's in that permit.
Chuck, I know you had your hand up. Go ahead, Chuck.
Sure. The first question is for this ongoing maintenance, we want to start right away. Could we pick a date for this meeting now? So next week starts off at the 28th, and I'm wondering if you would have, I mean, we probably have an immediate need to sit down and at least have a discussion with myself, you, and Jeff Cummings. The others as needed, yeah.
So what I'm thinking, Chuck, is that we have meetings on Monday morning, our supervisors meetings, and why don't we just schedule it for directly after that? If that's not soon enough, I have availability tomorrow. I'm not sure if the director and Jeff would have availability, but I know on Monday, shortly after that meeting, there should be availability.
I guess what activity is going on right now that would have needed a permit or would be covered by this permit that is still happening?
My understanding is nothing. So I looked over the order of conditions. It was basically paired out, right? So there was a group of daily activities that really didn't require your approval or the commission's approval, and that was catch basin cleaning, minor vacuuming of areas, jetting, things of that nature. So that's the day-to-day stuff that is probably going on right now. Anything outside of that, we've told them don't do anything, because that would have required under the permit your approval, if not going further and getting the commission's approval. So there's an understanding anyway, at least in my mind and with the director, that once we step outside of that roadway or try to do anything, that's really when we're starting to get into that really don't do anything without approval, regardless of what level that is. So and there's a fine line with that too, because we could be on the shoulder of the road But again, once we start stepping out of that area, we start getting into that, unconfined roadway, where we could have some erosion or sediment or issues like that. So I think right now we're not doing any work that's outside of the roadway or outside of those things that are listed in that first tier of that original permit. And I agree with you. I think we should have that meeting soon. That's why I think Monday would probably be great to do that. Not be something easy that we could just flow right into from our supervisors meeting where everyone's there.
Yeah, and at that super meeting, so I've been to those meetings before, and it seems like when I move in, all the people that have finished up, they leave. So I would just ask before this meeting starts that those supervisors that need to know that you say this, you let them know again that you don't want to you want to just work using that first page of the allowed projects, but don't do anything on any other page that's not allowed without a permit or that was part of this permit, and don't go off the roadway. That would be good news, and they should contact. It should be someone to contact if it's you, if it's Chris Cole or Jane Kinsella, just as a fallback for questions, just in case.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we can certainly set those guidelines and vet that out on Monday. I don't think that's difficult for us to nail that down on who the contact. I mean, Chuck, you and I talk to each other probably every day, so I'm always available. But I think Jeff is probably going to be your go-to person, along with the director, assistant director. But I'm always available as well. So.
Okay.
Ryan, I have another follow-up. So, and that is more a, are we going to see a new notice of intent sometime this month or next month or
Well,
within the
great question, Anika. I hope as soon as I can get around sending it in. I don't want this to sit any longer. It's a shame that we missed it, but I think let's just turn this into an opportunity to come up with something that, maybe there were areas that we wanted to address that didn't work out for us. Maybe there were things that Chuck really kind of wanted to be more specific in there because there was some communication issues. So we can address that in the NOI and send that in. But my goal is to get that sent in immediately.
I worked on this one with George Sample.
Yeah, and it seems that way because it seems pretty collaborative. It's very extensive.
Okay.
Yeah, I was hoping
remember-
that we could have a date though to have this in. I think if you were to commit to the first meeting in May, that would be enough time. And if it comes in before that, that would be even better.
So your first meeting in May would be the 4th?
First meeting in May would be
It's the second Wednesday, so I don't think it would be the 4th.
the 11th.
Okay, so basically that NOI is coming in no later than that,
I would receive the NOI on my desk for distribution on May 4th
right. So you'll get
at
it
the May 11th meeting.
hopefully earlier than that. And I Chuck, we did talk about this briefly this afternoon, but I think I can find that original submission that was submitted in that they worked on, and we can go through that. No sense reinventing the wheel on some of the things. And then, maybe that comes out of this is that we have a more formal notification to you for things that we feel that doesn't have to come in front of the commission, but should actually go in front of you for notification. I think that's probably an easy thing to do, and it can be submitted by email, so it's on record to you. So I was going through the order of conditions. It was mentioned of that. I can't imagine that was ever really formally done to you. So I think that's something that could come out of this.
Yeah. Yeah, we have this one. So the original order of conditions was written, it was 2015. So that's not really that long ago. And that's the date I have on here.
Yeah, and that's the order of conditions I was reading as well. And just looking at the actual order, it might be something that I'm drafting the NOI off of is the actual order of conditions because it was pretty thorough. So I think that's the start. That's the starting point, at least for me. But I think we should be able to hit that May date.
And I think looking at it to see what else we could do based on what the town's, how the town's been working since 2015 makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we have different supervisors now, so which has made a difference, I think, at least communication wise. So it's a good opportunity. We'll sit down with Jeff and he can be part of the conversation.
Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing it. I actually, you know me, I don't throw stuff out. I kept
No.
the previous one and marked it up, so I'm ready to to discuss things. But we're not going to get into details now. I see Brian Bowe's hand is raised, so I'll recognize you, Brian.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. I mean, it sounds like there's been a lot of conversation already outside of our view, but my first question really is, so I don't know how this process worked. How did it lapse? Why did that happen? And it's coming up after the fact.
So we had a permit in 2015 that basically got to the end of its life expectancy, and so we I can't remember how many times did we extend that. Probably once, or we were under governor's orders at one point that extended that permit, and then I think in 2020 we came in front of the commission and extended it. At that time, we only extended it for 1 year.
Okay, so again, consider me Mr. Ignorant here. So why is it that these previous extensions were handled and they weren't forgotten and this one was forgotten? I mean, so what went wrong, I guess, is the question.
We generally had it's like anything. It gets missed. It got missed. On not only my end but other ends. Things go by. We're in a pandemic. We're not really thinking of these things lapsing on a yearly basis when we've done them on a 3-year basis. So
So if that's so, then why was it done on a 1-year basis and not 3? Like it sounds like it's typical.
because at the time that we did the extension on the last permit, and Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the conversation was, let's give ourselves a year. Let's not extend it a full 3 years because the commission at that time wanted to take the opportunity to update it and modify it. During that 1-year period. So a lot of things happened in that year period. We didn't get around to it. And, we're not used to that sort of 1 year period. So it's one of those things that it just got missed. There's different tracking systems now in place because of this, because of other things, but so it won't happen again, but it did happen.
So you said that the intent was to update it and that did not happen. Is that my understanding?
No, it was supposed to be a collaborative effort. We didn't get around to setting that up to have that discussion on what we wanted to do to modify. It would have come up when we filed for that extension, maybe about 3 months.
So I get the point there. It was just missed magically. But so then my one other more detailed question is, you've emphasized a number of times in the roadway, and then you've given examples of the kinds of things you're talking about. Does that extend to things like if you had to dig up the roadway?
Yeah.
Is that something that you could just do without going to Chuck or maybe even the commission?
So that would be within that roadway, and we would list underneath the old order. It was listed certain things like spot repairs, digging up, replacing sections of pipe within the roadway. Yes.
And so in that case, you would notify Chuck, though, at least that you were going to have to do this kind of work, which seems like it's more likely to be an erosion concern.
We could generally, if it was something that we're doing within a day or two, filling in at the end of the day. We don't have the likelihood of having massive sediment and erosion issues. But yeah, again, we could address that differently than the last permit for sure.
Well, you've also talked about being collaborative and what have you. I think that would be great. I would welcome more collaboration, more complete collaboration with the DPW. So that would be good. It seems to me that there are some things that are bigger and we should talk about whether they're on the automatic list or not. But I agree with Anika, that's not a detail for now, but
No,
okay.
but again, Brian, to your point though, I mean, I would certainly, if I'll be working with Chuck and we're going to be having these discussions, as soon as this Monday, I would share with him some of your concerns or things that you're thinking about. That would be a trigger for him to at least be notified for, and then we can start working around that and drafting that up.
Right, but so the obvious point is, I think it's great if you guys can pull it together for Monday. That does mean that we as a commission won't have a chance to talk with Chuck much about the kinds of things that are covered, are not covered, the kinds of things we might be concerned about. So getting something in place to handle the immediate ongoing issues makes a lot of sense, but getting back to something broader that would last the 3 years, I think that's urgent.
Right. I think that was the discussion that we had here, is that let's shoot for that May filing on that first meeting in May for the NOI, where we'll address these, lack of a better term, not so routine things. And when I say routine, what we'll talk about on Monday, and I don't think we're going to go beyond this, but what are the things that we do every single day that we're not disturbing much, that's general maintenance. And so we'll have that quick conversation. Anything outside of that, I think Chuck has a pretty good idea of what you're thinking about, Brian. So
So how would we, so if it's this now ad hoc approach, at least until there's a new NOI, how would we be comfortable that in fact Chuck in this case was learning things before they happened and not being told, oh, by the way, in one of these day-to-day things last Friday, we did such and such. So how do we get filled with confidence that the communication is in fact working well enough?
well, I think we're going to sit down on Monday. We're going to have that conversation. If Chuck wants A, B, and C, and that's what we give. So, there's,
All right,
we just need to set our boundaries as far as what are we comfortable with in the time being, or for that matter, and then that'll be what the DPW will have to satisfy.
okay, so the last thing I'll say, so we can move on and have a relatively short evening, is if in fact that becomes a problem before there's a new NOI, if in fact something gets missed or we hear about it after the fact, I think there should be an immediate meeting to get together and fix that communication, because this idea that some things get missed and some things go wrong, that's problematic to me. In a world of ticklers and everything else, it's pretty easy to remind yourself about important things. So if there's a miss, if another thing just gets missed before the NOI, can we agree that there'll be an immediate meeting to correct that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see an issue with that at all.
Okay.
We're working the
I'm
same.
good. I'm
Yeah, I mean, I work.
plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Back to you, Anika.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any other questions or comments from commission members? Seeing none, I'll reach out to members of the public. Any questions or comments from members of the public, please go to reactions and raise your hand. Seeing none, I think we're at a point where we could move on unless Chuck, you had any final words.
Yeah, I was reviewing the order of conditions as this afternoon, and then as Brian was speaking, I think there's a lot of, even when written, there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen on projects because full permission is not given when they go off the road and for certain projects and for priority habitat area. And I think we've been following those rules throughout. And I like what Ryan said about how he told his, they told the crews to not do work off the roadway and just avoid that until we can get that fixed now. Now, that makes me think if something comes up, we're going to have a special permit, an emergency permit, or find out if we need a permit at all for an RDA, using an RDA, a request for determination of applicability. A lot of maintenance in the roadway under the Wetlands Protection Act is exempt or a limited project. So this is really a Reading thing. It is a dual permit with the state and the local bylaw. But I think the way it's been working and how it's been updated recently, it's pretty much in tune with the new regulations and with, I guess, the latest people who have taken over positions in the DPW department. So I don't expect any issues, but I do want constant communication because there is no permit at this moment. And, I'll have to call the chair for permission on certain things. And we would talk about emergency permits, but, off the roadway, in my mind, becomes an issue. I guess later on, coming up in the next month, to hit you guys, like it's on April 13th, so you understand, we're doing a roadway permit. And we're using a request for determination of applicability. And this is something that's been going on for years, since, I don't know, 2010. And we use a request for determination of applicability because this roadway resurfacing is within the road right of way, and it's very unlikely that issues will happen. So a lot of this drainage work would fall under that same category. It's within the right of way, and it's very unlikely that issues may happen. So I feel comfortable, but I want to be informed of the projects. And I think that, Brian and me have been going to DPW meetings, and I don't think we could put a list of 10 things that the DPW does down on a piece of paper that they have told us since those meetings have started. And I just hope that this is an opportunity to understand the process that the DPW does every day and keep us involved in it. That's all I have to say.
Okay. So Ryan, we will pencil you in for the first meeting in May.
Okay.
And we will be checking in with Chuck to see during upcoming meetings to see how the progress of the general stormwater maintenance permit is going.
Okay. And I will, as soon as I get off this meeting, I'll send out that invite, Chuck, for Monday.
Thanks for coming out. And is there anything else you wanted to talk with us about tonight, or is it just about this permit?
Nope. I think Chuck just wanted us to have that opportunity to have this discussion and let you know what was going on. So we're just being transparent, and then what our plan was moving forward to come up with a solution. So
Okay.
I appreciate you fitting me in. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, and we're letting you go early.
Thank you.
Lucky you. All right. Thanks. Okay, Chuck, let's move on to, I'm just going to mention, according to the agenda, we already touched on 1310 Main Street, that it is continued to April 13th.
Do
So
we
we don't
need to
need-
vote for that? Do we
I
need
think
a
we already
vote to
voted
continue it?
for-
We
we already
didn't vote
voted
tonight.
At the last
To
meeting?
continue 1310, I think it was continued till April 13th at the last meeting.
Okay,
If
so
you
we
want to
don't.
vote again,
I'm-
it's,
I'm just mentioning it. I don't think we need to vote again because it was previously voted. Mentioning it because it's on the agenda for those
Okay.
who are keeping track, and that's important. Also, in the same category, the second hearing, 0 Small Lane, also is in that same category. It was previously continued at the last meeting to April 13th. So moving to the third item in our agenda, Lot A, Main Street. I see Mr. Federa is here. I see Demetra's here, and I'm not sure if the Mikey caller is also on this project or not. I can't remember, but let me, Chuck, you probably know better than I. So I'm going to read the script on that. So Lot A, Main Street, next to 1261 Main Street, that public hearing. Now, just bear with me. Now, before I read this, didn't we close the public hearing at the last
yeah,
meeting? So
yes, we did. I didn't think it
So
would
I'm
be an
not
issue
saying
if
it's
you,
continued.
sure, I didn't think it would be an issue if you read that, so that's why I didn't stop you. But this meeting was closed. We won't be taking any input from abutters or the applicants. And we're discussing the information that we have and deciding and then taking a vote. That's what's happening here. But I
Okay.
think that wouldn't be bad to start out by reading that and
Okay,
giving us some.
so I'm not going to say we're reopening or that we're continuing. I'm just going to say we're here tonight to discuss Lot A, Main Street, next to 1261 Main Street, regarding a notice of intent filed by LLC Frank Lanzillo pursuant to the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act. This project involves construction of a new single-family dwelling on a vacant lot. New improvements include a driveway and utilities. All work is within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Lot A, Main Street. That is Assessor's Map 51, Lot 95, Mass DEP file number 270-0749. So, for those who don't know, the Town of Reading website is revised. It may not be your typical navigation to find that information. We did receive not the latest plans were dated 3/16 and another date, I'm sorry, 3/16 and 3/14, I believe. And Chuck, I just want to invite you to bring up the house development plan, the latest house development plan.
I don't know what sheet you'd like to look at.
Let's look at the proposed conditions with planting and the rain garden. Actually, one up, the drainage. Is yep. So I'm just going to open it up to commission members. If you haven't seen it already, do you have any questions on this particular site plan? Or I will invite people who have done a site visit recently to give a report of that.
So I can start us off by, well, actually, you can go there. I'm looking for the list of asks that the commission had, which I just found. Do you want me to start out with that?
Sure. But
So
I
I
do
wrote
want to
this-
make sure that the site visit today, what was seen there gets mentioned.
Which would you like to do first?
Go ahead through the asks and then we'll do the site visit.
So the first one, I sent all these to Giovanni and the developers after our meeting. So they were aware of what we talked about and they had at least my list. And the first one was, what is the size of the drain culvert and how is the water go into the culvert? And the second question is, so, I also could show you, there's a detail on this, I think it's on this sheet. If it's not on this sheet, it's on another, there it is, right there. Hearing no questions, the next question that I sent to them was about just removing the tree that was in this area of the plan, and that tree is gone. And I wanted some snow storage areas. Well, not I wanted, but I sent them the request for snow storage areas on the plan. And they're shown right there in that hatched area. This is outside outside the 25-foot area, but within the 35-foot area. This is consistent with what we've had approved, and we've recently approved one that was made and the top dressed with large 2-inch stone, 4-inch stone, and that's at Artis Senior Living Center, which is right on Main Street in Reading. The next thing is talking about taking the trees down. Now, we'd have to turn to the other plan for that. I'm just going to hold off on that for a second. And then wait to review the vernal pool. A landscape plan that includes the driveway and more vegetation. So moving the driveway over, yes, in this area here, and putting vegetation in this area. It looks like they put the catch basin in that area to collect the water off the neighboring property, and they're delivering it into an overflow area that is called a rain garden, and it's 50 square feet. And then it would overflow at elevation 201.95 into the 25-foot area and presumably go directly into the BBW. And then I have leave some trees and I'm going to let Martha direct us to those areas. And someone else will also talk about the landscaping. But we asked for the landscaping plan to include, I just went over that. So a landscaping plan that's not engineered but designed, and something that adds to the habitat, and size and scope to elevation of the water with the condition to keep clear prior to the issuance of occupancy. So that would be in the notes and in the operation and maintenance plan. But a condition like that or a statement like that can also become a condition in the order of conditions. And then just verification of the tree count. So we looked at a lot on this page. We just didn't look at the landscaping plan and what happened to the trees that we wanted to remain. And so that would be on this other page. So Martha, I think this works with your site visit. If I just turn to the other page and you let us know about how you worked on the site visit and what you found.
The trees I was looking at saving were on sheet 2. If you look on sheet 2, it shows the trees to be removed. And Joe Carnahan has his hand up. I'm happy to let him go ahead of me.
This might be a quick question. Chuck, you mentioned you referenced the snow storage areas at Artis for this crushed stone. Is that what this? So I was trying to look at the plan to figure out whether does this plan dictate that the snow storage areas would be top dressed with crushed stone, or are they going to be lawn, or is that unspecified here?
No, it's probably a detail on it.
Yes, I was reading that page with all the text there to see if I could find it. And I couldn't. I was wondering if you had.
It is.
Is that it right there?
So they're the snow storage areas. I can see where they are. I can see they're, and they're consistent with what we talked about in terms of, next to the road, out of the 25-foot zone, not in the rain garden. But I was just curious whether what you described with the crushed stone is what we're talking about here, or whether this is lawn or what that was going to be.
Chuck, I think outside of a hearing, I think it's okay to ask for clarification on the planting scheme. What's proposed in the area from the applicant or Demetra. Just
You can
for
do
expediency.
that.
Just point of information. I mean, it may take us, 15, 20 minutes to find it, or we can ask them. I'd rather ask the applicant.
Who would you like to ask?
I don't know who knows the exact question.
What's the
answer.
question?
So the question is, what's the ground cover like underneath the snow storage areas?
Yep,
If
exactly.
there's that
That would
question,
be,
yeah.
So
I think either Demetra or Giovanni should be able to, or both of them should know the answer.
I think it's Giovanni.
Or if either of them wants to raise their hands, if you know.
Hello,
I'm muted Giovanni.
it's Giovanni Federa here. How you doing?
Hey, good.
Hey.
Thanks for coming.
So just to clarify, it on the plans, it is proposed to just be lawn, maintained lawn in the
Okay.
snow store. Yep,
Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
you're welcome.
All right.
Okay, go ahead, Martha.
Okay, if you look at page C2, it shows the trees that are going to be removed. That's the right page, and now we need to just get to the right part of that page.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
There we go. They're the ones up at the top next to the shed called T24 and T28. And I saw in a written document that we got in the email that those trees will be removed. And looking at them on the site, I can see that they are very tall white pines, the kinds of trees that people come back to us and say, can we take these trees down? They're going to fall on my house. So I can understand why a new house built would not want to have those tall white pines so close to the building. So I think it makes sense if we're going to build a house here to take those trees out.
Okay, thanks, Martha. I also wanted to mention if we look at the planting plan, that side is not 100 proposed to have 100% tree, but interspersed. Well, depends what you, forgive me, a layman calling a tree, but sweet gum tree and arborvitae kind of intermixed there, alternating. And in the corner, what's that number one plant?
Red maple.
Red maple. So there are some trees being proposed to go back in that corner and along that area. So for the rest of the Conservation Commission, I guess my question to you is there any more you want to see of what Chuck has up, or anything else you need clarification on before we move on to discussing issuing a notice, an order of conditions? John, go ahead.
Yeah. Do we have a summary or a table somewhere of the number and type of trees that are going to be removed for this project versus what's being proposed to plant? Did I miss that? Or is that just kind of information that's spread out through the various?
I believe that was earlier on, but I'm sure it's on the plan.
Okay.
Chuck,
If you
do
go
you
up
happen
at
to
the
know where it
Yeah,
is?
which was the one, we were on T2 before, right?
Yeah, at the top, there's a box. There's a
Oh,
little
yeah.
table at the top of C2. Tree total
28.
26.
Oh, 26.
26 healthy, 2 dead. So 28. And the proposed planting plan includes ground cover, trees and shrubs.
Mhm.
And I counted up and it looks to me like it meets the tree policy with at least 1 tree or 2 shrubs per tree that's being removed.
Okay.
And then there's survivability, spacing, and hopefully it takes in and fills it in and thrives.
I'm a little concerned about the deer and the survival of the high bush blueberries. We've seen them getting eaten by deer in the past, but at least it's worth trying.
Yeah. I don't see any more questions from conservation members.
I have a bunch.
Go ahead.
Sorry. In the section on the plan that refers to invasive species, it mentions something about replication, and I think that is no longer applicable. I don't remember what page that was on, but it was in the fine print. And there is no replication area anymore. Yeah.
It may be possible that that was an artifact that never got edited out, but
Yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest. And the erosion control refers to silt fence and straw wattle. And my experience is we usually ask for mulch socks instead of straw wattle. It refers to a concrete washout area, and I'm wondering if they have proposed a location for where that concrete washout area will be. I have not noticed that on any of the plans. Should
I
we-
think it would be okay to get a clarification on that.
Can we unmute Giovanni again?
Giovanni.
Hello? All
Hi.
right. So the concrete washout would be located outside of obviously the 35, and it would be probably closest to the street. And so just to stay away from all types of areas. I mean, we're happy to not have a concrete washout on site. We can have it totally off site at a concrete washout facility, whoever the concrete supplier would be. So.
Okay, thank you. I see there's a section about good housekeeping, and I'm wondering if it's appropriate to put a comment in the good housekeeping part related to a request from an abutter early on to make sure that the construction equipment drivers know that they should not drive or park on the private way, which is Nelson Ave, which makes it problematic where they are going to park. But that being a private way, it might be good to get that information in the good housekeeping practices section of the plans. And I had a question of what you're expecting the homeowners to walk on when they're going from the driveway to the door under the cantilevered roof overhang. Are there going to be pervious pavers there, or crushed stone, or just lawn for the residents to walk to the front door, which I assume is the front door there? Yeah, that picture you just went away from. No. Yeah, that'll do it. Either one.
Okay, thank you. That's fine.
Martha, from what I've seen, that's a design element that they haven't specified. And it's potentially something we could specify in the order of conditions.
Okay. I would like to specify in the order of conditions that whatever they put there should be pervious, either pervious pavers or crushed stone or lawn, and not impervious concrete or other slab kind of things. I think in the plan, it shows that the bound markers for the vernal pool habitat will be pressure treated wood. And I think normally we ask for stone or concrete boundary markers. And it looks like there is still a culvert going under the driveway. It's only shown on some pages of the plan, but not other pages. So the culvert is still in the plans, correct?
I believe so. What I saw as I looked at the plans was there was a drain on the left side of the driveway, a drain grate in that area, and a 6-inch pipe under the driveway to go to the rain garden.
Yeah, okay, as long as that's still there. And on page C2, number 19, it refers to sweep clean the binder course prior to the installation of the final bituminous concrete surface course. Page C2, number 19. And I don't really understand what that is. Is the bituminous concrete surface course part of the building or part of the driveway?
I think we can ask Fedora that one.
That
Mr.
is
Fedora.
part of the driveway. And so before they put the top layer, they just want to make sure that it's clean to layer onto the sub layer of the pervious pavement.
Okay, and so that bituminous concrete surface course is the pervious surface that is elsewhere referred to as needing to be vacuumed regularly to keep it pervious?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Those were all my questions. I just have one comment. Given the wetlands surrounding this and the lack of area for patios and decks and things like that, I would love to see a design element that includes perhaps a screen porch in that little triangle that sticks out on the side of the house, so that the homeowners aren't coming back to us in just a short period of time asking for a permit to do some construction of decks or patios or screen porches or something. I'd love to see that included into the plans. Those were all my questions.
Okay, any other? Thank you for your thorough comments, Martha. And any other comments or questions from commission members? Andrew, go ahead. You're muted, Andrew, sorry.
Sorry about that. So I'll be brief. I just want to appreciate all the changes that the applicant has made. They've definitely been listening, so that's great. When we walked the site this afternoon, there's one large tree. If you're on the plan of, I think I'm C2, there's a large tree at the back of the site, right outside of the building zone with the T31. Which seems to be an oak tree, a large, healthy oak tree. So just during the construction, since the fence there is awfully close to the roots, in the order of conditions that we protect that tree and do, I don't know how you protect the roots since you're gonna be building back there, but something along the lines of protecting the roots of that tree would be nice to add to the order of conditions. And then I'm still, and this is up to the commission, but I'm in favor of asking in the order of conditions to get the vernal pool certified or not. It may not be a vernal pool before the, I guess it would probably make sense to be before the certificate of compliances. So it's part of the order of conditions, but I'm guessing that's not typical. But I still think it's a good idea, even though we're assuming it's a vernal pool, just to get it on the public record if it is, because we're not going to be around potentially the next time this comes before the commission for that deck that's going to be happening in the next 10 years or whatnot. So I think that would be nice to add. And then the landscape plan looks fantastic compared to where it was. There's things I'm worried about, like the maple in the top left, number 1, seems close to the structure. There's not a lot of room there to be putting things, but overall, I haven't done the math to see how it adds up, but it looks plentiful, I think. But yeah, I mean, obviously in 3 years, we want to see how things are doing. And so no, I guess there's no specific comments on that. So yeah, just protecting that tree, T31, the oak, and then adding the vernal pool certification, or try to certify it if it is before the order, the compliance, whatever that's called, the certificate of compliance would be issued, if that would be a reasonable addition. And those are my 2 suggestions.
Okay, thank you for your input. I don't know, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah. So as long as we're talking about some inputs to the order of conditions, when we were there today, we noticed a fair number of trees, not right next to the building, but a little further out that were not in the best condition. So my thought is that it would be helpful if in the order of conditions, there was explicit language telling the homeowners that they need to contact, well, either contact Chuck about removing trees or at least consult the tree policy, but just something in there that stays with the house and stays with the deed. So it tries to fill the knowledge gap we seem to run into in a number of places around town. Just so there's some words in there that make them act the way we'd like them to act.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. I'm not saying something came up for me. Just I was thinking about this, that we haven't done it a lot previously, but in my time, it has happened that one of the you can't require that they read it, right? Even though it's their responsibility to read it. But in the past, one thing we have required is that the new property owner sign a form that they did read it.
So if I can chime back in, so I understand that you can't force them to read it. At the same time, my assumption, and it is an assumption, similar to ignorance of the law isn't really an excuse. So ignorance of what's in there, I would hope, would not be an excuse, although I'm not sure how that works. It just seems to me that putting it in there is at least a step in the right direction.
Right. So, yeah. So one of the ways we've worked around, ensuring that us receiving some sign off that the new property owner has read the order of conditions. So if they ever came to us, we could say, you signed it. So you should have known.
Sure.
That's kind of an additional step. I'm just throwing it out there as something that's been done in the past. It's rare that it's been added to orders of conditions, but anyway, just as an illustration of things I've seen done.
Okay, and that's the only comment I had there.
Okay, go ahead, Chuck.
Brian, there is language that we have. It might need to be modified, but I think you even commented it on 16 Varney Circle about cutting trees down. It doesn't say they can't do it, but they have to come to the Conservation Commission. And then standard in the order of conditions, there is an acknowledgement statement, and it's typical for developers to supply that acknowledgement statement, but it's not typical for someone who's owned the house for several years to supply that acknowledgement statement. And for instance, what is it, 1261, which is the parent of this property. I can't tell you how many times I told Dan, I think it's Dan Sweet, that I need that acknowledgement statement, and he yesed me to death. And I think they're moved, and I never received it. So I don't know if 1261 understands that they have an order of conditions on their property. So, but I think we'll get it, and usually we do from all developers. Obviously, they remember the process here.
Yeah, so I recognize what you're saying. I'm thinking of other places like Baker Street where the homeowner acknowledged that there were certain conditions in the order conditions that hadn't been satisfied. But I just wanted to be sure that we had something written to try and give us a leg to stand on if we needed to stand on said leg.
Mm-hmm.
All right, with that, I'll stop beating that horse.
Okay, this is the last call for comments. Go ahead, Chuck. You gonna say something?
Oh, yeah, so I do have a comment. So my comment when I look at this plan is that when I look at Demetra's landscape plan, which I think is a big improvement over what we were looking at before. So Summer Sweet is in this area here, red maple. Tree is a witch hazel. And 4 is sweet spire. This line here, I mean, I guess before I go any further, I don't recognize that line. Does anyone on the commission, did they figure that out? Is that a fence or is that?
That's a good question. I'm not
I'd
sure.
like to know what that is. I'm gonna unmute Giovanni if I could, or oh, Demetra raised her hand. Let's get Demetra. There you go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Demetra.
Yeah, that says limit of maintained boundary. So as I understood it, and Giovanni will correct me if I'm wrong, that's like, lawn or yard that someone can mow or play on. And then there's a boundary where there's should not be, lawn. Does that make sense, Giovanni? Is that right?
Yeah, I have to unmute Giovanni. So you're saying between this red line and the house is lawn. Between the red line and the wetland is a boundary. Is this like a line in the sand type boundary, or is it an
I
actual
guess
fence?
it is. And it's that little dotted red line, not the big curved red line.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's
I'll
that.
unmute Giovanni just for clarification, but
I had this-
sure, go ahead.
No, I had the same question, but Giovanni will make sure I'm right.
Sure. Giovanni?
Hi, yes, so that is like what Demetra said, that is the limit of maintained boundary. So just to maintain the zone of natural vegetation, that line kind of separates what will be mowed and what will just turn into natural vegetation with time.
And but it's just a line in the sand. There's no physical fence or I don't know, anything else. Anything else to denote that area. Is that correct? There's no fence there, Giovanni? I'm gonna say he said yes. There's no fence. Okay. Getting back to the plan.
Hello?
No, you're there. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so there is no fence. There's the only boundary would be the vegetation and the plantings. So it acts like kind of like a hedge boundary, kind of, but it's just a diverse planting set.
All right. So when I looked at this plan and I saw all the plants and I ran through them before with the maple and sweet spice and all that, and what I wanted, and since that area is part of the protected 100-foot buffer zone within the town of Reading Wetlands Protection Permit, it doesn't look like that will get much use anyways. It looks like you planned for that. So I wanted that to be part of the order of condition, that is not an area that can be accessed. And it's instead of having a 3-month hold on any activity in that area that's, encircled by 37344 formed maple tree, and back of that red line, that is not an area to have human activity in perpetuity. And I suggest that would be, and I think it works with this plan, and I don't think anyone's giving up much for that based on the plants that are in there. And the plants have to be maintained in this area for perpetuity. As a matter of fact, the plants, well, that's up to the commission. I think the plants in the 100-foot buffer zone would need to be maintained in perpetuity. The 100-foot vernal pool habitat, the ones that are outside of that, and we usually have our 3-year look back period and survivability condition. That was the only thoughts that I had about this, that plan.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. My opinion about that area, between the thick red line and the thin red line, you know, on that southern angled side of the house, is my thought process is that's only, I think according to the scale, we're talking 5 to 10 feet between that thick red curved line and the straight fine red line. Yeah. And there's some functional logic to me of keeping a small amount of space there for the sake of breathability around the roof and the house like itself, if that makes sense. And so I think we could, in theory, request that that area be filled with vegetation, possibly low cover,
Here?
maybe herbaceous. Yep. To add some dimension to that, but I also don't have a huge problem with keeping it 5 or 7 feet of a small lawn just to get around the house, just to walk around the house. But that's my sense, and I'm open to hearing what other people on the commission think about that. Go ahead, Brian.
He's not the one who raised his hand, but as much as Brian loves to talk, I'm guessing you're calling on me. It's okay. I actually love to hear what Brian has to say. So, but I'll just quickly say that I agree with Anika. I think it makes sense to have a 5 to 7 foot buffer so that people can walk around the house. And I don't think, going to make a big difference whether that's grass or herbaceous layer or what. So I think that seems fine to me.
I think they planned on grass. I think the only change that we were going to condition a change, it would be a kind of a herbaceous layer. And this doesn't live in the well, let me say where it lives. It's in the riverfront standards that around houses that they need to give enough space to maintain the house. And so that's in there. So I think herbaceous layer, you could get through that area also. And, so I think that kind of meets the standards, but, grass might also be okay. Any other comments?
Andrew?
Oh, Andrew.
Yeah. My last comment is just, it's maybe the underground filtration that's proposed next to the house. That's within, they don't need anything special of the order of conditions, or since that's technically in the no build zone, is that considered a structure? Is there anything we need to say about that in the order of conditions? Or is that just okay? I'm not sure.
Andrew, I think typically what we tend to have in the order of conditions is periodic maintenance of it. I believe it takes the roof infiltration, and sometimes you can get leaves and roof debris. And so you need to check some you just need to inspect it on a regular basis. But the purpose of that as well is to protect the recharge of rainwater that supplies this resource area, this wetland. So even though it is a structure, it's doing a benefit to the resource area by ensuring that a large percentage, little or well, almost all of the water that hits those roofs gets infiltrated and resupplies the wetlands and keeps the system going. If that makes, does that follow?
I think so.
Okay,
Well,
Brian?
Yeah, Brian, go ahead, but let's go back to this question if Brian's not continuing in that conversation.
Okay, so I just wanted to weigh in with Anika's idea of putting a herbaceous layer in the part between the lines. One thing that occurs to me is that I think we've all noted that there's not a lot of space around the house to play. And obviously we have no idea who's going to buy, who's going to move in or anything. That may not be an issue, but if there's a herbaceous layer there as opposed to lawn, I think it would make it more obvious to the homeowners that that's not where to put some kind of play apparatus, whatever it is. So I do like the idea of something different there to differentiate. That's my only thought on that.
Thank you, Brian. Chuck?
I'm wondering what it says in our regulations about, I think what Andrew was getting at was putting a structure in the 35 no structure zone. And does that need a variance, even though it's doing a good purpose? So I was quickly looking over section D and section 3D and trying to figure out if it has any comments on that. So I haven't finished reviewing it. So if you could just go on and get back to me, that would be great. I'll make a comment if something comes up, but otherwise, unless it says it, I think that we're back to what.
Go ahead, Joe. Help us out. A little stall for Chuck.
Okay. I mean, well, I'll quickly say that since I don't have my dictionary in hand, I wouldn't have thought of something underground as being a structure. But that's, again, I'll leave it that to Chuck and his dictionary and his copy of the bylaw. I will also, I was going to say with respect to not having lawn in that area around the house, is there, I don't think there's any egress planned on the other side of the house. So I'm assuming that if anyone's ever going to get over to the space between this house and the, well, I guess you can go around the garage side, but I would also might expect people to go around to the other side. So, I mean, I would be, I'm now out of my depth in terms of the landscaping expertise, but I know that people walk on grass. I don't know that people necessarily walk on an herbaceous layer that we might ask for there. If the point is, if people are going to walk on it regardless, because it's the only way to get to that other side of the house, then I'd rather see grass that survives instead of an herbaceous layer that gets turned into mud because it's not meant to be walked on. So that was my other comment. I don't know if that was enough to get Chuck to where he needed to be in the regulations, but.
Well, we have Andrew, so thank you. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Andrew.
just if Chuck needs more time, I'll comment on this as well. Herbaceous layer, in my mind, I think is something you could walk on. I think as a homeowner, I'd want it to be lawn so that when I'm mowing, I could just keep going around. So I don't have a strong feeling on what to do in that little space there, but herbaceous, I guess, would be better for conservation, but grass is better for the house. But I guess nonetheless, we probably don't want a hardscape there, so we should probably specify that that zone should be vegetated in some way.
And we could say either grass or herbaceous cover. There's a hand raised from Demetra. I don't know if she wanted to add a comment about just to point something out, so I'm going to ask her to unmute.
Yeah, I hope it's appropriate. Grass works, so does clover. You can use other ground covers that you can walk on, Joe, to your point, which is a good one. So grass is not your only option, but I think it is nice for people to be able to move all around the house and enjoy all the gorgeous trees and shrubs. So, it would be unfortunate if it had to be a higher ground cover, but there are a lot of options to get the water going through.
Thank you.
Um,
Chuck, we'll circle back to you. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, so number 4 of 3D, talking about the variance. Number 4 talks about other in-ground structures, and that's to keep them out of the 35-foot zone of natural vegetation. It does seem like it needs a variance. I'm not sure if to be in that area. So you guys can check that out. And I would say that we've been operating on everything is a structure. This actually does say in-ground structures. So I think that was covered. When we rewrite the regulations, it would be great to have a definition, because certainly I think the disturbance and the roots, the protection of the roots and just the area and the proximity to the wetlands would make me think that a foundation is something in the ground that's permanent, and so is an infiltration system. So maybe both of those are structures. But my thought is, yeah, they might need a variance. I think there was one offered before. So it probably isn't so hard to kind of just regenerate that variance and have it available for the commission. I know that a lot of times between the planning regulations, the building regulations, and the Conservation Commission wetlands protection regulations, builders and engineers get confused, because it's certainly a definition of structure. Giovanni has his hand up. Can I unmute him? Sure, Giovanni.
Hi, so we do have the playroom to put that infiltration system on the other side of the house against the north abutter. If that's a better option, to take it out of the 35-foot buffer and without the variance, we could go that option as part of the order of conditions, if you're open to that. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. That cleared it up.
So I still see hands raised from.
And I think they
Demetra.
just didn't put them down. Demetra, do you still want to? No, they're down.
Okay.
I mean, I also
Okay.
thought the infiltration could go underneath the driveway, but we've moved it onto the 35-foot. So the north side of the house. So that's good. Any other questions?
Seeing no other hands raised, I get the sense, kind of reading the room here, I think we're at a point where we could make a motion on whether or not to issue an order of conditions. So I will entertain a
I have
motion.
one more thing before we issue, and we're going to have to get Giovanni's consent on this, or the applicant's. I know it's been a long time, but today's the 23rd. We closed on the 9th. We have 21 days to issue. That would be the 6th. But our next meeting is on the 13th. And I would have to have it written supplying a copy to the applicant and the commissioner for review at the meeting on the 13th, issuing it on the 14th. So we would like an extension of this, to issue the order of condition until April 14th. So I'm not sure who's going to speak, but if you could raise one of your hands, that would be helpful. Even to say no. Sure, Giovanni.
Yes, that works with us.
Okay, thank you.
I'd be happy to make a motion. I will preface it by saying I still don't think this is a great location to put a house, being so squeezed in next to the wetland. But Mr. Fodera has worked hard with the commission to meet the letter of the law. So I will move that we approve that I don't know what we're supposed to move, the order of conditions? Chuck?
You should, so approve, you can say the address, approve Lot A Main Street as discussed with the conditions that we went through tonight and the conditions, I wanted to get those ones off of your notepad that were part of tonight's record. So something like we want to capture all the conditions and all the discussion of tonight's meeting to incorporate as the conditions. We talked about, the protected area now is, that lower corner and perpetuity, a 3-year look back on everything that's not within the vernal pool 100-foot. And so it's all in the record. So that's the motion. We would have to incorporate all the discussion of conditions.
Okay, and I'm moving to write an order of conditions. Or
Yeah,
am
well,
I
that's just going to
approve?
have to happen, but that's fine. Yeah.
Right, so we closed the hearing last time. So this time we're approving the
The
building.
notice of intent
We're approving the notice of intent. Okay,
and issuing an order of conditions.
okay. I think I've got
With the conditions discussed tonight.
With the discussion, with
Yeah,
the conditions.
absolutely,
discussed.
got that part.
Okay.
All right, I move that we approve the notice of intent for Lot A Main Street next to 1261 Main Street and issue an order of conditions, including all of the conditions that were discussed at tonight's hearing.
Second.
Okay, I'd appreciate a vote on
Any-
that.
Any discussion? That's just make sure.
So does
You
that,
tell I wasn't.
Wait.
Go, Andrew?
sorry, I should raise my hand. So does that mean we're gonna include like trying to get the vernal pool certified? Is that an acceptable order of condition? So that before, or what is included in this?
That was one of them.
I would like to include that one. And then also, just to reiterate what Chuck said, the area that is currently in the vernal pool 100-foot zone will be maintained in perpetuity. I can't even say that, forever. And should always remain vegetated in some way.
This is getting, I hope this isn't too much, but I thought we should extend, after I heard Martha say that, I think we should extend all the conditions that were discussed tonight to all the discussions, all the conditions that were discussed during the course of these hearings as part of the record.
Well, I think it's automatically in the record because on the notice of intent, when you say you're approving it based on the submitted information and what's discussed at the hearings.
Yes and no. I heard someone called me once and said that it was discussed, but he didn't realize it was a condition. So I think we've covered ourselves by doing that, by just saying the conditions. Most of them came up tonight anyways, but I'm not sure what we didn't think of.
So one thing we could do is request an additional, put it to the applicant to request an additional, either one of two things. We could schedule an additional meeting just to discuss the order of conditions, a draft order of conditions. We could discuss the terms of the order of conditions and hash that out in a separate meeting. We've done that before, and I know, Chuck, it's not a preference.
Well, I know you're not asking me, but yeah, that's for the
I know.
commission to decide. I don't see where we can do that, because he's already given an extension to April 14th.
Right.
And it's well within our means to be able to put this order of conditions out there and be reviewed. Okay. And if we need to issue it tonight, and then we should be all set. He's just extending the time in which we can get it to him. So, and then people can review it. But if you review the order of conditions and a new condition comes up that wasn't discussed at the meeting, we can't put it in. That's the only stipulation.
And I'm going to ask one question. So what if all of us review the order of conditions and some of us disagree with certain aspects of certain conditions in our responses individually back to you? Don't we have to have an additional meeting before the 13th to vote individually on different amendments to that order of conditions?
I think it was pretty clear. All the conditions are pretty clear. And there didn't seem to be any ambiguity between, one thing that could come up. So let's say, Andrew, you're asking for the vernal pool to be certified prior to the certificate, to the issuance of the certificate of compliance. That's outside of the vernal pool season. So it'd be very tough to do it. So they'd have to do that right now.
Or in next March, or
that's
March after that.
or the next year, or
Yeah.
something like that. That might be tough to do, and you might have thought about just saying, and I know you're thinking like, I got to get it right. It's yes or no, but you might say this is a potential vernal pool, and I'd like to protect it as a vernal pool in perpetuity. And that should be the condition that I want in the order of conditions. Then it doesn't make them certify it, but it gets you everything you want, except for finality.
So Joe has his hand raised.
Sure.
I paused in case you wanted to respond, Andrew, but if you want to respond, go ahead and raise your hand. Go ahead, Joe.
Sure. So it sounds like maybe just to make sure that Chuck has any necessary leeway to include conditions that were discussed in prior hearings, I should offer a friendly amendment to Martha to, instead of all the condition, to issue an order of conditions with the conditions discussed tonight, to instead be all the conditions discussed tonight and in the hearings on Lot A Main Street next to 1261 Main Street. Martha, would you accept that friendly
I'm
amendment?
fine with that. Yep.
Okay, great. So that means that if one of us asked for something and it's in the record from 2 weeks ago, that's what we're voting on, as well as voting on the conditions we talked about tonight.
Are you?
I don't have anything specific in mind. I'm pretty sure that the applicant has done a very thorough job of trying to incorporate all of our questions and comments meeting after meeting for months now. I'm not aware of any outstanding ones, but if there was one, we could, we would be able to include it in the order of conditions. If it wasn't already in the plans that were in the notice of intent that we're approving.
Okay, I think we've been thorough about including all the necessary references that we need to include. We have a motion, we have a friendly amendment, it was accepted. Do we have a second on Martha's motion with the friendly amendment?
Does it need to be reseconded with an amendment? Out of my,
I will second your friendly amendment. She already accepted it. I don't know how that goes. So just in case, I will second your
it doesn't
friendly
hurt.
amendment.
It doesn't hurt, I'm sure. Go ahead.
So is there a second to Martha's motion?
Oh, don't we
I-
have to vote on the friendly amendment first?
That's not
You
what friendly
guys know
amendment
this
means.
better than me. I don't.
So my understanding, sorry, this is me, being a town meeting nerd or whatever. My understanding of a friendly amendment is something that is consistent with the spirit of the original motion and that changes the wording of the original motion with the consent of the person who made the original motion, basically. And I
And
think
does
that
not
describes it.
require a vote?
And does not require a vote if the person
Okay.
who offered the original motion accepts it,
Okay.
which
In
Martha
that
did.
case, I'm
Okay.
going to cycle back because I don't think anybody seconded Martha's original motion.
Sorry, I thought I did.
Okay. So we have a motion and it is
Mr.
seconded.
Carnahan did. I have it in the minutes.
Okay. Sorry, I was losing track. Bear with me. So let's put it to vote.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Dribbin in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha
go
Moore
ahead?
in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. So we're going to issue, draft the order of conditions. Chuck, you're going to send it out to us for review. Are we going to see it sometime next week or the following week? What do you think?
I think you're going to see it before the meeting, the next meeting, probably on distribution day. That's what I can promise, and enough time to just review it.
Okay.
And if anything is, well, just get back to me individually with if I've messed up one of your conditions. And Martha, send me your notes. Outside of that, I think we're all set. And I just want to say, Martha, good luck with the minutes on what we just discussed over the last half hour. I'll tell you that.
I've been typing away.
Voice to text helps too. I want to thank the
Okay, so this
applicant
is
for
all
coming.
set. I want to thank
Yep.
Mikey, Demetra, Giovanni. Did I miss anyone? I think that was it. Oh, did we ask if anybody from the audience had something to say? We did go through that.
We
didn't
did previously, and I've been watching. There've been no additional hands raised.
Okay, we got
so-
thumbs up for Demetra. And
Thank you very
so we're
much.
good to go. All right. Can I thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to our next hearing or our next item on the agenda. And this is another special request at this moment. And I think Lee Diamond, who is at, where's Lee Diamond at? Yeah, of course I forgot his street. So Lee Diamond did some tree cutting and landscaping. He had just bought a house, and it's the back of Facilio's, and it's actually oh my God, I forgot that woman's name that lived in that house.
Patricia DeBabney.
Yeah, he bought Patricia DeBagny's house and did some clearing. And when I was coming into work, I saw the crane, and sure enough, there was removal of a bunch of trees and shrubs. And I think my comment was to Lee that I can't believe, with Patricia understanding where she is and bringing it up to us so many times and calling the town hall so many times, and also Mike Palmer, who's the owner of that restaurant, not mentioning it. And the owner of the restaurant gave them permission to stage in the parking lot, that it never came up that tree removal could have been. No, we don't have to rely on others. I get it. But these two were very educated on the do's and don'ts of what can and cannot happen in the wetland resource area. And it
Had
put
my,
Mr. Diamond in
Are you-
kind of a tough spot. Hold on one second.
oh, sorry.
So anyways, I walked in there and the company that was there, they said, no problem, we'll stop. But Lee Diamond had just left for work. He ended up turning around. We had a conversation. He said he was, happy to come to the meeting and discuss this situation with the Conservation Commission. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lee, but and at any point I can put up your the plan that you sent me.
Yeah, so sorry to interrupt the first time. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. So pretty much, unfortunately, I just had my realtor review all the documents again, just to make sure that I didn't sign anything unknowingly. And I mean, she literally never disclosed anything. So I bought the house in the middle of the winter with snow on the ground, didn't even have access to the corner of the yard where she hadn't raked in a year and a half. So there was debris and dirt and trash. And so there was really no way for me to ever know that it was a wetland until I had carpenter ants and termites. And so when I had Terminex and the building inspector come out, they said that removing the vast majority of the trees was imminent. You know, many of the trees were left dead, weren't taken care of for years. So the whole property is just a mess. So yeah, I would love to replace it with some trees that, you know, work good, that are living and healthy, and I'm open to, you know, whatever it takes to make everybody happy, I suppose. And I'll end with that, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Can you just sort of review? I just want to hear like the extent, like how many trees? Go ahead, Chuck, if you know.
Yeah, I just want to point of clarification. It was the home inspector, the town building inspectors did not go to this property. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. And I looked it up. It's 113 Hopkins Street, I believe. So can you sort of, can Chuck, either yourself or Lee, describe, you know, what's happened?
This is the plan, but what had happened was there were 8 or 9 shrubs and trees taken down. I think there were 7 trees and maybe a couple of shrubs that were taken down. They're along the perimeter of the fence where it says Garden A, C, and E, and along where the arborvitae are is kind of the new parking area that we created. And as you turn down towards where it says 113 Hopkins, the arborvitae, those stars, is along the path and driveway area and back of Facilios. So this area back here was not taken care of in any way. There were a lot of there were several trees, so at least 3 that probably would have well, 2 for sure, and the third one probably would have qualified as a dead tree. One was completely dead and the top half of it had fallen off and there was no bark and it had rotted in place for many, many years. Another one had core decay and it was a large section of that. And another one, I guess, that said was dead, but we didn't, obviously the leaves haven't come out yet, but it didn't look too healthy. So I can see how in the wintertime, with the snow cover, that you wouldn't, looking at the back of a restaurant and parking area, that you wouldn't really automatically think of a wetland resource area. Over by where it says Garden A, pretty much where 2 vegetable gardens, where the words 2 vegetable gardens are, there's a fence right there, and underneath the fence, there's a stream that goes into a culvert that's about a foot in front of the fence on the neighboring property. The neighboring property has a daylighted stream, but on this property, it's in a culvert. And no open stream is in any part of this property. But there's BBW, I guess it would be towards the south and to the east. So that's pretty much the report. Other than to say that we have a plan in front of us, and you know, and Lee wants to know from us if this is acceptable, what's his homework, can we move forward with just a conversation, or do you need some sort of enforcement order or issuing of a determination through an RDA?
Okay, I want to reach out to the Conservation Commission about this. I think if my sense is, it sounds like we have, a resident who's new to the situation. Didn't know about it. I can understand in that backyard how it could not look like a wetland. I think that was part of the problem with facilities in the first place. So there's a part of me that thinks we can handle this in a way, the point is to just get it done and get it done effectively. And I get the sense, especially because the resident is here tonight, that they're interested in repairing this. And I want to sort of take into account that, that approach and that goodwill, and move forward as easily as possible. That's just my sense, and I'll throw it out to other members of the commission to comment on. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiment for the most part. I do want to follow up though on the question you had asked initially on how many trees. So I think what I heard Chuck saying was 7 or 8 or somewhere in that ballpark. So the first comment I would have then is that the replanting probably needs to be more in the way of trees / shrubs to be in accordance with the tree policy, unless I'm missing the math here somewhere. And I know, Mr. Diamond, in your email, you were talking about replanting lawn and what have you, and that's all well and good, but my main focus is on the tree replacement. So I guess my question to you, Chuck, mostly is, are there enough trees in this replacement plan to satisfy the tree policy?
So if the arborvitaes are considered trees, there's 10. I was just concerned a little bit about the monoculture, and the other thing that I wanted to bring up is I think it's a good idea for arborvitae because they're hardy, they grow quick, and they're going to block off the parking area and the restaurants. So I was hoping that some additional trees, and I did bring this up with Lee, I thought the commission may ask for some additional trees and just have that ask out there and have Lee just propose a couple additional trees somewhere in the yard. And Lee, just so you know, our native planting list, every tree isn't a full-size tree. Some of them are shorter, dwarf type trees, and you could choose one of those.
Okay.
And, I think he also had a question about if they could be evergreens too, and those are native also.
Okay, I'm going to acknowledge Martha.
Okay. Just a second. Yeah, I was going to ask similar questions. The star on the left that says large white pine, is that a tree that is still there or a proposed tree?
Lee's still there? Lee, are you there? Is you need to be unmuted?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry. It's still there. I actually don't think it's a pine. I think it's a spruce. I think I misidentified it. It's actually the one that you said was going to be growing at such an astronomical rate that it might not be safe, but I think I will keep it for now.
Okay, so you're proposing to plant the 10 arborvitae. Is the Japanese maple existing or proposed?
Yes. And I'm open to planting other ones. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm 33 years old. I love gardening, but I don't really know a heck of a lot about trees and what works and what grows and what's native. I mean, I'm open to other nice looking trees. The only reason I chose those is because with my research, it was going to give me more privacy. And there's always people smoking and drinking and yelling at the restaurant. So I figured that might give me a little bit of, seclusion from that. But I'm open to planting other things in the front yard. I like growing things. I mean, I have 5 gardens there for a good reason. So I'm open to suggestions as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you can find it on the new town website, there should be a list of native trees and shrubs that you can pick from. And there are a lot of options on that list. I'm kind of partial to flowering dogwood, not in place of your arborvitae, but someplace else that might be a nice thing to add. And experience says that if you have arborvitae, you may want to get from one of the big box home stores something called deer netting, and put the deer netting around the arborvitae in the winter time. Otherwise, you will end up with something that looks like a lollipop, no branches at the bottom and all branches above deer chewing height, which is about 5 feet off the ground. So protect your arborvitae, especially when they're young. I don't know how bad the deer are in your neighborhood, but they could be.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I guess the only other question is, Mr. Tironi mentioned that it's surprising the homeowner and the restaurant owner didn't warn you about the wetland, but I'm also surprised that the people who cut your trees down didn't know, because we certainly have been trying to ask the tree companies to inform the homeowners if they need to get permission from conservation before taking anything down.
Well, I think it's the craziest thing that, I mean, obviously, I don't want to call the lady underhanded because I never met her. And I guess this was kind of an estate sale because the husband died. So I never met her or talked to her. But at the end of the day, I mean, it feels pretty deceitful that I never found out. And I'll be honest, I don't really know the guy next door. So I didn't really expect him to tell me. But it does kind of stink that I find out about it being a wetland from someone showing up at my property at 8 in the morning, and was the nicest person in the world. So I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like, it's an unfortunate way to figure out when you spend 600 grand that half your house is a wetland and this, that, and the other, It pains me.
Yeah, you should talk to that home inspector. He needed to have that on his checklist.
Yeah, no, I should. And it's tough because I looked into the law, and I guess this is one of the only states apparently that she doesn't have to legally tell me. So I don't even know if I have any recourse at this point. So I don't know.
At the end of the day, you're going to do what you wanted, and there was just a little hiccup in the road. And it's probably better to find out when you're planting than to find out when you're proposing an addition, which I want you to know, which is not, which is an automatic. It's not an automatic, no, you can't. It just comes with a process. And this is part of the process that you'll have to go through if you ever propose an addition.
Well, I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you guys trying to help me expedite it. I mean, I am genuine. I'll have all this done within a month and a half or not less, as soon as you give me the green light to do it. I was just hesitant to spend a bunch of money until I knew for sure that everybody was comfortable with the proposal. And I can make another proposal with some more native things after I do a little bit more research throughout the week, and then maybe give you a second proposal if it would appease everybody to get going.
Yep. Leah, there's two other commission members who have their hands raised, so I just want to let them chime in. Joe first, and then I'll go to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Anika. So several people have made a comment about it would be nice to see another tree. I don't think anyone said anything yet about where. My understanding, I haven't actually been to this property. I think the previous conservation dealings with Cecilia and so forth were before my time on the commission. But I understand that Garden A is the corner closest to the wetland. So if anything on this plan were to be replaced with a tree, Garden A is the first place I would start, since obviously the plantings are going to be most beneficial if they are, if they're in fact part of the buffer zone closest to the wetland. And other than that, yes, putting arborvitae between you and the restaurant makes perfect sense. So.
Just keep in mind, Lee, that your Michael Palmer, who owns the restaurant, also has a planting plan, and he has proposed some larger trees on his side of the fence. So if Garden A is another spot, and you're going to put in a large deciduous tree, you want to make sure that Michael has his further down the row. There's going to be
Okay, I'm going to go to Andrew. Andrew, I know you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I did. I mean, this is something that I've been wondering about. Do people know that they live on wetlands? And I guess clearly the answer is no. So I don't know how we address that as a conservation commission, so things like this don't happen too often in the future. But what would have been the proper protocol had he known? Was this like, would he have needed to do a notice of intent or just an RDA? So it sounds like we're kind of just bypassing that here since it already happened. Am I understanding the situation correct?
So there's well, in a way, you're in a way you're looking at the forest and you're not seeing the trees. Is that so? I'm trying to say that you're concentrating on a permit, but at the end of the day, the permit facilitates a process that's in compliance with the Conservation Commission's conditions. And even though we don't have, or we're not looking for a permit in this case, which hasn't been decided yet, but if that's the way we go, we're getting the compliance. And, sometimes when people are putting out money to improve their yard and it's a benefit for the habitat, accommodations are made. So if this came in originally and it was over 4 trees, they would have to have asked for you would received so everyone that wants to take down trees goes through the tree permit online. And if it's over 4 trees, they're denied and they're told that they need to put in an application for a request for determination of applicability about the trees. And then we go through that process. So this would have been an RDA at the end of the day.
Okay.
And to also chime in, Andrew, we've done something in the past. We've done a friendly enforcement order, where, we've done an after the fact RDA. So, how does it exactly get handled from a paperwork standpoint? From what do we vote on and what exactly are we discussing? Those are 2 matters that we could ask for, and that just gives us the paperwork trail we want to return in case what we're asking for isn't met. So it gives us the paperwork to say, we came to this agreement, it was written down, you got a copy, we had a copy, and the plan was laid out and it was all understood. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so there's a couple ways to do it. If that helps, I think that was another part of your question.
Yeah, I think you're getting at that. So it's not all just on this meeting. Do we have a paper trail to see what's
Right,
happening? Yeah.
right. So the communication to clarify the plan. Because as you know, things are discussed. Somebody walks away with one main message. Somebody walks away with a slightly different main message and a difference in what's the most important sequence. And this usually there's too many details, even though this seems like a fairly simple, straightforward process. Replace some vegetation. I think it would be good to have it codified, and I would recommend a friendly enforcement order so the applicant doesn't have to file an RDA because that comes along with filing fees. I say friendly enforcement order because this definitely seems to be an interested, cooperative applicant and who's ready to jump in, and I applaud that and I celebrate that, and I'm grateful for it. And those are my thoughts on that one.
Okay. So we're calling it a friendly, what is it?
A friendly enforcement order, and
Okay.
a little bit friendly in parentheses. It's not officially written. It's written up as an enforcement order, but
Okay.
it's a cooperative enforcement order.
Sounds good.
So Chuck, that's my sense on where a good way forward with this.
Sure.
So did you want to propose a different situation, or did you think something else was more suitable? My ears are hurting. That's why I had to.
Well, that might be the easiest way to do it if you want some sort of paper trail. Anything else is going to take time. I mean, with an enforcement order, they can start right away. I think the only thing we would ask for is that updated plan showing whatever the commission decides tonight, 1, 2 trees somewhere appropriate on the property in addition to what's already there. And then just list, I think that the plan does list it. And then just, we could put in a date where things need to be finished by, and we could also put in some dates just to ensure survivability. So it works out for our purposes, and probably more so than a request for determination of applicability, because you can immediately just continue on with your work.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Brian, go ahead.
Just wanted to point out what I hope is obvious, which is, Mr. Diamond, now that you've gone through this experience, I trust that when or if you decide you have to do something about that spruce tree, that you will reach out to Chuck and what have you, so we don't have this conversation again. He says, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you,
One more
Joe.
thing, I think, I never saw the tree service in this town before, but they were really nice guys. Like I said, they stopped right away. I've almost been, thrown in the ditch by some of the tree companies. And this guy was really nice and helped me get a hold of the homeowner. And we swapped contact information. And, I let him know that when he works here in town, I told him about how many houses are near wetlands in Reading, and told him the resources we have to check, and that he can always call me. And he seemed to take that information in, and was happy to have it.
Sounds good. Joe?
So in terms of what we're actually asking for here, do we have a consensus about one tree in addition to what's proposed here, or are we asking for 2?
Andrew?
I'm not sure, Joe. I thought we were saying the arborvitaes are okay. I think the only thing that I would help with, since it sounds like we're having a proposed new plan, is just to show where the wetland is on the plan, just so I have a point of reference, because I think you're right, Joe, the garden is right next to where the stream goes under to the culvert, and it sounds like there's some trees being planted there. So it's kind of hard to take in. But yeah, I would like to see more trees and less arborvitae, so dogwood, crabapple. But it sounds like, so yeah, there are 7 trees taken down. There should be some math, I guess, that makes up for the 7 as well. But yes, I'd like to see more trees as well. I'm sorry. It's a hard one for me to kind of help with without getting too specific.
So I'm just wondering if we're not counting the arborvitaes as trees, because there's 10 of those.
I thought those were counted as shrubs. So 2 to
It's on,
like,
it's on our.
are they? I maybe I'm
Oh, we have to
thinking
go
of
to the new
the
plan now. So.
You're gonna make
I'm
me
thinking of the
search this, aren't
wall
you?
of, well, I'm thinking of the Lotte Main Street. Earlier versions of that had a, I mean, that is a case of removing an astronomical number of trees. And part of, I thought, how that was offset was that there was a, great wall of arborvitae proposed at one point, which I thought required was 2 to 1. But I mean, just, again, doing math out loud, if we're talking about 7 trees that came down, and we replace with 2 trees plus 10 arborvitae, and the arborvitae count, 2 to 1, then that adds up.
And were any of the 7 trees that came down the ones that are already dead? Because that also changes the math. But having not been to the property, I am not really sure how much room there is for putting up trees if he's also going to have any sort of sunlight for his garden, which is why I was suggesting something like a dogwood that's not going to be as much shading the whole yard. So I can't really vote 1 or 2 trees plus the 10 arborvitae without having visited the property. And I'm sorry I didn't get there today.
It sounds like we need a little bit more information before we can vote this final. We're looking for replacements. The way I hear it, according to the tree plan, that according to the tree policy, that will fit the appropriate use and continued, gardening. We do want to support the gardening in your backyard. We also want to take into account what's happening on the other side of that fence of facilities. So kind of like a slightly pulling back and having a slightly broader view of what's going to work best to plant trees and shrubs back there. And the resident can check with, I think, a gardener, somebody at Mahoney's, or, work with somebody, call up somebody to get some support, maybe work with you, Chuck, to fill this in. Chuck, if you're talking, you're muted.
Are the smaller ones are shrubs, and the larger ones, it says, I mean, this is not very scientific, but this is my long and short of it, are trees. So I think you could find a tree that was arborvitae, and I think that this applicant was looking for tree, something that would grow tall for that shading and visual shading and all that. So I don't.
Shading.
Yeah. So when I saw arborvitae, I thought that we were going to be considering them trees, but I also checked out our native tree list, which is going to have to be updated, and it doesn't have arborvitae on it. So in shrubs or trees. Well, it doesn't mean that they're not native. It just means it's not there. All right, because they are native.
Right.
Some of them.
Yeah. Right. I've seen those. So
So I think that we should just say, enforcement order, friendly enforcement order, send us a plan, make sure that the arborvitae's are trees, just download some page from the internet, and then come up with the locations and species of the other trees shown on the plan, and then we can proceed. It doesn't need to come back to another meeting.
That sounds reasonable to me. Does anybody have any objections to that? Seeing none? Should we vote on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion for an enforcement order for 113 Hopkins Street as discussed tonight.
So moved.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that. I'll second it.
Okay, is there any discussion, or Lee, any questions you have?
I guess my only question would be is what is the turnaround time? Because obviously, ideally, I'm looking to start ASAP, but I also want to appease the process.
I think we can, you can start, Chuck will tell you as the soonest you can start. It's very soon with an enforcement order. But
Sounds reasonable.
we can, it's more for us, the end date has got to be something reasonable, so that we can come back and just verify the work. Usually
Yeah, I
things like
think at
this
the
are
end
when
of the
work
day,
is
just
done.
in general, I keep it moving. So I'm gonna get everything done really quickly. I guess my only thought is that 3 of the trees that I removed are dead. So I don't know what kind of math we're doing, but I plan for those things to be like 6 to 8 feet tall, and that, I guess, maybe we're nitpicking, but that seems like a big shrub.
So what we need you to do is, so that was one of the questions. We want you to verify that those arborvitae's are trees.
Well, it's just okay. I'm in.
So first off, we're asking for an updated plan.
Yes.
With a little more information on it, just proving that those arborvitae's are trees and native. And
Yes.
then find an area for 2 additional trees. Give us the species of those trees also. And then send that to me. And when you do that, and I say, yes, go for it, you can start. So that could be, that time frame is on you. That could
Perfect.
be upcoming weekend, if you got that to me soon enough. I'm going to send you the enforcement order tomorrow with some time frames on it. Basically, it'll say, before you start, you have to have an approved plan by the conservation administrator. I'll review the property in the fall, and I'll review the property in the spring, and then one more time the following year. Any trees that have died off, I'll ask that you replant them. And then that actually won't get closed out until that 3rd year is up. So hopefully, you're a gardener, you got a green thumb. You don't want dead trees in your backyard. You'll replant them anyways. I'm just verifying it for the commission.
Thank you very much.
Great. All right, Lee, thank you. Call me if you have
Thank
any
you.
questions tomorrow.
Thank you for your time, everybody. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure we did the final vote there.
We haven't actually voted, but
We haven't
So we
actually
can do
voted.
that now. I thought we did vote. Okay.
So I
No,
thought,
John,
moved and seconded.
John
Moved and
Sullivan in
seconded.
favor.
okay,
Andrew Durbin in favor.
Rainbow in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay, are we anywhere close to the rest of the agenda? Because we've been sort of ping-ponging all over the place. Where are we at?
Right. So Lee, we're finished with Lee, and now we have Theo, who is well, I'm not just mentioning because that's who's next. We're saying Theo is 16 Varney Circle. That's been closed and issued, and we're just looking at the order of conditions. So participation from Leo is, I think he's just here to make sure that we complete that process.
Okay.
Deb Giotti is here to talk about his order of conditions that just expired on the 14th. And so
Okay.
it's up to you. Given that, we can just review the order of conditions or talk to Deb Jayoti.
Let's- Yep. Deb, bear with us. I think Barney Circle is going to be fairly quick. I did not have any comments from the order of conditions. Does anybody else have comments on the order of conditions that was sent around? Brian?
Yeah, I actually sent some comments to Chuck via email. Some of the comments are just like grammatical and what have you, so that's not worth discussing here. But the main one centers around the number of times that 75 feet is mentioned, and it's a relatively small space. And so my question was where some of these things would go and make sure they were further away than 75 feet. The 75 feet was for the stockpile, 75 feet for the equipment, and I forget what the other one was, but
Watering,
what was it?
dewatering.
Right. So that's really my major question on this is, do they even have that space? I just didn't want them to end up with something they couldn't actually satisfy.
So when I when I thought about this, I in some circumstance I thought it would come up, but I almost thought like stockpiling could be on the driveway or in the cul-de-sac. But you know, given the house is almost 35 feet away in most areas, it would be tough.
Yeah, and even on the driveway, I think that wouldn't satisfy the 75 feet. So I
It
don't.
wouldn't, but it's, yeah, so we should change to 75 feet and we should add the driveway to it. Because if they could put it on the driveway, there's, you know, it's not going to impact the situation anymore.
Right.
Chuck, I mean, as you said, you know, they're going to have to go in and excavate quite a bit for the addition. Should we just have them like live load it and take the soil off site?
Yes. There's no place to stockpile soil on
nowhere-
the site, given its proximity, unless they were stockpiling it out on, you know, Varney Circle.
Right.
So I could add that to the order of conditions.
And in terms of dewatering, my sense is I suspect they could possibly set up some dewatering, although looking at the layout, I think it would be an opportunity I see would be outside of their limit of work line.
I'm not so concerned about the dewatering because if that's done correctly,
It'll infiltrate
yeah, it'll
without sediment. I think,
sediment will, yeah.
yeah, but I think
So the
I
dewatering
think
could
that's a
be
good point.
like 35 feet away.
As long as it's well staked and enclosed and we don't get a silt stream gushing into the wetlands, filling it with silt.
So Chuck, if you could go to my first comments, we can just run down them really quickly. A little bit higher. Oh, I guess.
Like, some of your comments got wiped out and I tried to just put them in green.
Oh,
I
I am so
added
sad.
or.
Okay, so that one there is just, I think he has to rework that sentence. What you're trying to say, and I agree with, is to make sure there's a gap between sections when you have a long section. So that's just a cleaning up the language.
And I replaced that when I copied and pasted this, so half of it didn't come through. So this is what we should have happened. And it also satisfied Martha's comment about not having that extra line there.
Okay. So then the next one down is alliance or on land. My question there, and it's a small one, but so the point is that as written, they're saying no activity beyond the limit of work or on land within 25 feet. And I think that's, you added the or, so I think the way it used to be a comma, right?
Yeah,
Right, and so just, it wasn't clear. I think this clarifies it, not a big deal. You can move down if you want.
we just changed this to 35 feet, dewatering. This is gonna be changed to stockpile on the driveway or off-site.
Right, so next one down, I just don't understand why horizontal is important there as
Sure.
opposed to just some distance.
Yeah, so sure, so it's, I think that comes in when there's a steep hill, like around Grove Street, that you wanna be, you know, if you're going up a steep hill, like on Grove towards Meadowbrook Golf Club, it's very steep back there. Though, if you're just 100 feet away up the hill, you're not going to be as far away as you'd be
Okay.
100 feet from a
Yeah, that
horizontal
makes
distance.
sense. That
That's
makes
where it came from.
Yep. The next one down, cutting, where'd you go? You jumped around. Did you miss the one on native trees?
Yeah, so this is the one right here where these,
there it
the
is.
owner, yeah.
So my question is, I think that would be true for cutting any trees, not just native trees, right?
Yeah, I
guess
like it, yeah.
I just don't understand why there's any reason to have a clarification there. You can skip the next one. I get that. Let's see, were there any more? Was that it? Okay, that was it. So simple.
So this
I
is
just-
also the one where I wanted to comment that we have this standard order of conditions that says you cannot cut trees within the 25-foot zone without coming back to the Conservation Commission. And you had asked that in the previous one. And then here, if this doesn't have it, I should put it in, which is the acknowledgement.
Oh, yeah, right. Good point.
Okay. I did want to
Here it is right here. If you want to read it, number 17. If that satisfies you, that's a standard condition.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm all set, Nika. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And thanks for going through that, Brian. What it brought up for me was the sheds inside of the 25, the shed that's going to be removed is between 25 feet and the wetland line itself. So the shed that's going to be removed is inside of that 25 foot. And it's not 100% clear exactly how that's going to get removed. Is somebody going to drive in with a truck and drag it out? Is it going to be disassembled and carried in parts up the hill? Chuck, do you have a sense of the appropriate way to condition that in this order?
We could. No, I could ask the commission for language, something like, I can imagine that it would be moved to the driveway, but I don't think I think it's very old. So
Well,
disassembled and placed and moved off site and disposed of.
Yeah, I think we don't have to give 100% definition of the means and methods necessarily, but we could say it disassembled and removed with no erosion, with no rutting or leftover debris, and just removed with minimal impact. I know that's not exactly the right way to say it.
See what Joe has to say.
Yeah, go Joe.
I was I think presumably only so much detail we want to specify this in. We should definitely specify something because it says in here there should be no activity within 25 feet without our written permission. So if we don't give them written permission, they're not allowed to remove the shed that they're required to remove. That's not a great, combination of conditions. Do we want to Okay, so so it is included here. Good. That's already mentioned. I mean, do we specify no equipment, heavy equipment or something? Or, I mean, I've never needed to tear down a shed before myself, so I'm out of my depth there in terms of what your options are.
I really don't think we're worried about the lawn side of the shed. You know, so if something drove up to
All right.
it and pulled it out.
Given
We
given
could-
that it's,
he's right. This is another situation where it may be a good idea to get clarification from the owner. I think it's on site on the line here. Theo, can you help us out with
Hi,
this?
yes. So the shed is really light material. I don't know if it's like a plastic or a vinyl. And I feel very confident it could just be snapped into pieces and taken away manually. And it's just laid down on cinder blocks. So I mean, even the cinder block could be carried away. So I don't think it's not like a big heavy wood shed. It's just very light. So I don't think really you would even need a machine to get it out.
in that case, I'm happy for what's worth.
Okay, I think that addresses it. Any other comments on the order of conditions? No, seeing none. Can I have a vote to accept the order of conditions as amended, to approve it and issue it?
Are we voting, or do we need a movement? Do we need somebody to
We need a
move to
motion to
a motion?
approve the order of conditions as discussed tonight, as amended tonight, and issue it.
I move to approve the order of conditions as discussed tonight and approve it.
I'll second it.
John Sullivan in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Can I interrupt? Who seconded it?
Brian, I think.
Brian did.
Brian? Okay, thank you. I got behind on my
Okay, for.
time.
Okay, I'm going to ask Martha to carry on for a minute or two. I'll be right back. Apologize.
Okay. All right. Chuck, what's the next thing on the agenda that we need to get to?
All right, thank you, Theo. We're going to move on to our next thing. So this is 48 Azalea Circle. And in 48 Azalea Circle, we have Deb Giotti here. Ghosh, who is the developer of that property. This property has come to the commission from the early 2000s. It was rejected once by the Conservation Commission. It went to Superior Court. The commission lost, but the owner never got the bylaw order of conditions approved. It came back in a different configuration and was approved for 2 houses, but the owner never built the houses. This was the Fafades that owned this property. They also did Carnation Circle. This was the stump dump lot that they never developed, but they intended to at some point. And that order of condition expired. Then later on, another order of conditions came in from the same family that was a house and a smaller house, and that was approved by the commission, but it wasn't approved by the planning board because there was a change in the driveway where you couldn't use a shared driveway anymore. And that order of conditions, although approved by the Conservation Commission, expired. Then we got into this latest one where the commission actually approved the order of conditions for a house and an in-law apartment. And that's what Mr. Ghosh worked with. But in his design, he's incorporating one house into that entire area. He came back recently with a order of conditions that was in effect and asked for a minor plan change to convert the pervious paved driveway that was for 2 cars into a 2-car garage with roof infiltration. And he removed some driveway along the side of the house. And that was approved by the Conservation Commission. That only happened in December, or yeah, that was in December, and probably January meeting, we finished that off. Between then and now, it was discovered that this latest plan on the eve of approving it for a building permit has expired on March 14th. And, you know, it was a surprise. It was something that I believe was discussed several times about keeping an eye on it. Deb Giotti didn't do the order of conditions, so he inherited it, and he bought the property, so he was well aware of those 2 things. I told him I would set it up and then allow him to talk. I think that's as much as I know about this project. I don't know about the ins and outs of what had happened and what caused this to become expired. But I do know one thing, that the commission doesn't have a mechanism to reach out to homeowners and let them know that their order of conditions is expired. And the order of conditions, in one of the standard conditions in the state half of the order, it states very clearly that it's not up to the commission to request a certificate of compliance or an extension. So those fall squarely on the homeowner, the applicant, or others. In effect, the only thing that I would close with is I would say that we're at a point where we need a new order of conditions. I do not think anything is going to change. So from the information that we had to review to how the order of conditions is going to be read, it's just a copy. I think it was even written on the latest application material, because the DP updates that all the time. So really, we're talking about just getting an order of conditions back, approving a new order of conditions that essentially is the same as the ones that just expired. So with that, I'll let Mr. Ghosh take the lead right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry. Just as much as I hate to waste the time of the commission. So I was in front of the commission in December, and I got the things approved. I applied for the building permit. It was, I understand the onus was on me to make sure, but my understanding was somewhat wrong, because I thought after I applied for the building permit, the order of condition needs to be valid at that point of time. And I have time to build it, because since I came in December, and I got everything done in January, I thought it was fine. But supposedly I discovered today that it had expired on March 19th. So I'm late by 4 days, and it got expired. And I don't know how to move ahead. I was very close to starting the project. So I am requesting the commission to see what the best I can do. And as Chuck mentioned, nothing needs to be changed. It should be the original one, but just the date of issuance needs to be changed. And I need to just put it to the registry, maybe with the new date. But I'm requesting the commission to see what's the best and easiest option out for me at this point.
Okay, I will, thank you for coming before us. It's an unfortunate situation for you. I hear you that you have that you didn't have it didn't sound like your understanding of the operational dates was terrifically thorough.
Yeah.
And you know, my sympathies are with you on that. and my empathy too. However, from a truly from a pure, like what's within our limits of what we can do standpoint, the only option before us is to get, like once it's expired, it's expired. Even if it was like, I know this is probably very hard to hear, but once it's expired, it's expired. And that's all we can, that's, I think, all that the regs allow us to say about that it needs to be resubmitted and with, you know, with the change dates. You know, if it was previously reviewed, my assumption would be the review process to get it approved a second time would probably not be too difficult because it's gone through a review process previously. It
Yes,
just,
as latest of January, like my meeting was on
you know,
January 8th, 2021. So,
okay, so a year ago, January.
no,
No.
December, 4 months back, 3 months back.
Oh, okay, okay.
He means January 8th, 2022. He's still
Right.
writing the
Okay,
wrong year
thank
on his
you.
check, so to speak.
Okay, right. But you know, I was looking into this, you know, we can only extend, according to the regulations and the rules we have to operate under, we can only extend an order of conditions if it's still unexpired. There's nothing in our toolbox to extend an order of conditions after it's expired.
It does that hold true even when I have already applied for the building permit, because I got that everything approved on January 8th, and I applied for the building permit on December 13th, 2021. So I applied it and I was just waiting for things. And
Right. The building permit is completely separate from us.
right, but they had been waiting for the approval from the conservation. That's what sparked that it has expired. But I had applied for the approval on December of 2021, so 4 months back.
So I mean, how fast the building department approves a permit, that's not anything we have control over.
No, I understand that, but the
Right,
building,
so
so I applied the building permit based on the assumption that my conservation, I'm all set, and I applied it. So had it been applied, like approved 4 days back, do you think it would have made a
Right.
difference?
I think if you had come to us before the conservation permit had expired,
I did.
that would have,
I
and if
think
you
I
had
did.
asked us for an extension before your permit had expired, I'm not talking at all about building department right
Right,
now.
right.
I'm just talking about if you had come back to conservation before the conservation permit had expired, then we could have extended it. But that hasn't happened and we're not there.
Okay. So what's my option right now? Another notice of intent and submit it saying that I need an extension?
It would, my understanding is it would be a new notice of intent. You could submit the exact same notice of all the exact same paperwork with pretending it's a brand new project. Do I have that right, Chuck?
That would
I
be
mean,
my
that's
recommendation.
that's
Simply copy the old notice of intent with the new dates, and now it would be signed by Ghosh as the owner. and then submit the plan that Jack Sullivan worked on when they converted the parking area into the driveway, and the stormwater report, and all that information is on the Conservation Division site under past projects, to the Conservation Commission, and let them review it. And, you know, it's, this project is a typical Reading project. Everything is outside the 35-foot. This, like I said, this project's been reviewed for the last 17 years by some conservation commission. And I've said, I probably said it to Mr. Ghosh before, that oddly enough, these permits keep expiring before people build the house, and this has happened again. I think it's a curse on this 48
I hope
Azalea
not.
Circle for summer. What are we up to, 5 now that's expired?
I hope not. I hope not, for the sake of the
This-
resident, because we definitely don't want to take extra steps to make your life harder. But the point is,
No
unfortunately,
extra steps, and we're not,
unfortunately,
supernatural
we
is
don't
not
have,
an extra step.
we actually don't have the authority to extend the expired permit. It's just.
We're not
it's
talking
just
about
kind of-
that again, Nanika.
No,
He just wanted to
no, I
know how
know.
to move forward. He's
Yeah, and we
beyond,
told him
he's beyond
he can
that question.
resubmit.
Yeah,
That's
beyond that question. So Ghosh,
So-
that's what you would need to do. We have an extra week between this meeting and the next. If you need some help tomorrow, call me. We'll get all the information for you and the new forms. Just fill it out on your own with all the information that was in the old one. That's what I'm hearing from the commission. And then pass in all the information. Have it to me by next Wednesday or Thursday, which I think you can do because it's all there. And then we will put you on the agenda for the following meeting, which is April 13th, and we'll start reviewing this thing. And hopefully it will go quickly.
And once it's approved, I suspect it probably will go very quickly.
That's when you have 3 years from the date of issuance to finish the project.
Yeah.
Before you would get into the extension portion of this. So you certainly have time.
I was so confident. I was contacting the tree companies to see the trees so that they could talk to Chuck and go over how it needs to be done. And that's when we discovered this. So I'm ready to jump into the project, but it's okay. So I will do that. And as soon as I can, by tomorrow, I'll start putting in the materials together.
So just so you know, this is a new notice of intent, so it includes a butter notification.
So what do I have to do for that?
There's a form. It just, so if you download the notice of intent, or on the website, there is a form you can download for butter notifications. Fill that in and send it to myself.
The butters.
Yeah. No, it's a request for an abutters list.
Oh, okay.
But you could just give me a call in the morning. We'll get some of the steps out of the way, and then when you get those done, we'll work on others. But butter notification is pretty easy.
Okay, so we'll go over it tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry for your misfortune on this.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments from commission members? No? Okay. Okay,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now
Okay,
back
Chuck.
to all the new business.
Okay, why don't you guide us through that?
So the next one is Joe's. It's community outreach. I think he asked me to put this on the agenda. So Joe, please take it away.
All right. And I hate to be bringing up anything at 10 o'clock at night, but so I'll try to be quick. So as I think we alluded to at our last meeting, the Town Forest Committee is planning a Town Forest Appreciation Day, I think is the full title, on is it May 1st? I think we said April 30th before, but since then I've seen something from someone else named Bo about May 1st. And I reached out to the, because I knew that the Climate Advisory Committee did a outreach thing at the Town Forest Anniversary Celebration. I reached out to David Zeke, Chair of the Climate Advisory Committee. He said yes, they were interested in that. I also mentioned Friends and Family Day, which we talked about, separate thing. Apparently, they're already planning on table. Let's talk Town Forest Day, and then they'll talk about Friends and Family Day. So with the Town Forest Day, I think it's a question of if we, I guess my question for the rest of the commission is, if there are going to be tables like on the Wood End field, as there were for the Town Forest Anniversary Celebration, do we want to have one? And who wants to work on, putting together some materials? I'm reminded of Andrew's question from earlier about, do people know that their property has wetland, and often they don't. I feel like this would be a really exciting opportunity for us to get people to say, like, hey, look, like, do you live next to a wetland? Like, go here and look, like, type your address into GIS and see if you live next to a wetland. It's not hard, and I bet we could save ourselves and homeowners a whole bunch of headaches if they just did that. So we could also probably talk about native planting, talk about our talk about the tree policy, just make sure people like share information about that, things like that. Is that something that we're interested in?
Yes.
All right. Cool.
I agree.
Yep. Cool.
That was
Ryan,
March 1st.
That's May 1st. May 1st. Yeah.
May 1st.
Yeah. So, in terms of actually making that happen, I know Martha and Brian have both attended Town Forest Committee meetings. Has there been one since our last meeting? They talked about.
There was one. I didn't go. I think Brian went on my behalf.
I did, and that's actually where the decision was made to split the one day into two. So the Saturday is the work day, where they have a number of projects to do, repairing the boardwalk and what have you. The second day is now the Town Appreciation Day, that was driven by expected parking problems at Wood End on the Saturday because of soccer and lacrosse. And so that's what drove it to the next day. And so that conversation happened. I think a table is great. I think we could have several different handouts on the table. One, I think, could be a town forest map showing the wetlands in there so people understand how much there is. I think there could be something on conservation, what we do, why it's important, and then a third one on some simple tips, if you will, tips like don't throw lawn refuse in the wetlands and why. Don't throw cinder blocks in the wetlands and why, but some simple things that address the most common problems we run into. And one thing, for example, is how do you start a project associated with conservation? Where do I begin? Where do you go for information? And that would help somewhat in the education viewpoint, which I agree is very important. But I think I started by talking about the Town Forest Committee, and that was the main thing when it comes to Appreciation Day.
So what do we need to do in order to actually, I'm thinking out loud here, what do we need to do in order to actually get these? I mean, either I cannot do, I would say I don't have a lot of volunteer hours available until roughly the second full week of April myself. But I could, I could certainly work then on, and would be interested in working then on, preparing materials or whatever it is that we want to share. That might be a little late for us. I guess we have a meeting that week. But we could also talk about, some of us could prepare some stuff we want to share, and then we could share it with each other the second meeting in April before, which is still Brian?
3 weeks from now.
So pick me.
Yeah.
So yes, I'd like to volunteer to help.
Cool.
Another point is I already told yet another person named Bo who was helping to coordinate that meeting, to assume that we would have a table.
Cool.
Just based on the last conversation we had at our conservation meeting. So they're already planning on us having one.
Awesome.
And so what I would suggest, if it's allowable under the open meeting laws, is a quick conversation, phone, whatever, on the side, if anybody is interested, and to arrive at the things we want to have and divvy up the work of who will attack which piece of it. Just so we're not all fumbling around, working around the same thing.
I
But
can
that's-
coordinate with you, Brian.
That would be great. It's just, like I said, a suggestion.
Yeah, I think divvying up work is not deliberation, is it? I don't think I'm not the expert
This is
here, but
deliberation would have to pertain to conservation matters,
Projects.
that
yeah.
projects.
all right. Well,
So
I
this
mean,
is outreach. So we're not talking about taking over the stock market
And the
or
other way,
starting a
the other
line.
way I looked at it,
So I
it may
think
not
we're
matter,
okay.
is that the meeting we're talking about is to schedule who works on what. And then we divide it and
Right.
go off. So
Yeah.
I think we're safe. No
yeah.
matter how
All right. Sounds good. Yep. Okay. Cool.
And I'm willing to help with coming up with some information to provide at the table.
Yeah,
So,
and actually, one
yeah.
more thing. Chuck has already reached out to the GIS people to see about getting a map. And I know, Chuck, you were wondering what kind of map I at least was thinking about. So that's what I was thinking about, is a town forest map, a little bit more zoomed in than the generic map that you see, just so the wetlands is more obvious. And so I thought of two ways. And the other things I was thinking of, I think could be handouts, piece of paper, two pieces of paper. They could take it home with them, frame it, put them on the wall, whatever they want to do. But the town forest maps, we could either do that, or we could do a smaller number of them, laminate them so they could be used by different people who were wandering in town forest that day. I think they're still planning on having some guided walks. I know Dave Williams was still planning on doing a bird walk. And so if they stopped by the conservation table and picked up a town forest map that identified the wetlands, and they just had that in mind as they walked around on whichever tour, whichever walk they were doing. They're also talking about a self-guided scavenger hunt. So they would be out in the woods on their own. It'd be nice if they had that wetlands map with them, I would think. I'll stop talking now, I promise.
That sounds like a great starter, Brian. We can hone it down. Well, we can expound on it. Andrew, did you want to volunteer too?
Yeah, I mean, just if there's anything that needs help designing any brochures, I don't know if you guys have brochures that you've worked with before. I'm happy to help. We should minimize how much paper we're trying to hand out at this. And I'm guessing, for better or for worse, most people that are probably going to town forest appreciation are aware of the wetlands. So you're probably not reaching out too far beyond the people that care already.
If I
But-
could talk to that, I don't think they're aware of how much of the town forest is wetlands. Even in the walks before they had the cutting of the trees, the culling of the trees, it was amazing how many people, it was like the first time they saw that the wetlands are right there.
Yeah.
When they were talking about trees being cut down near the wetlands, there was a lot of surprise that it was that close. So I agree, they're aware that there's wetlands in there. I don't think they have an idea of just how much. But that's
And-
my opinion.
I certainly
also-
agree with less paper.
Yes.
Maybe we should
Yeah.
think some things could be a QR code. We could do that in the office.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, that's good.
I like it a lot.
Another thing you can do is just have the paper on the table, and instead of handing it out, have people take a picture of it with their phone. Then they've got a copy.
Okay, so there's lots of good options. That's part of the honing that Anika was
All right.
talking about, I think, but
Sounds
there's
good.
options.
Yeah. All right.
I do want to chime in for a quick second and say that this event could be a primer and set us up for Friends and Family Day.
Yep. I wanted
So we could
to,
just recycle.
yeah,
Did
segue
we,
to that.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
just answer, did we miss the sign up date?
For Friends and Family Day, I don't think so. I was talking just last Wednesday, actually, I ran into David Zeke again in person. And, he was telling me that for town committees, not only do we not have to pay for a tent, but they'll provide a tent. It didn't sound like we were too late. I think the only question was, do we want our own tent? Do we want to share a tent with anybody? That's probably the only question we need to figure out right now, just because I think reserving tents is something that, I don't think we've passed the deadline, but there is a
Yes.
deadline.
We want a tent.
Yeah.
Is it worth reaching out to town forest trails, whatever, and encouraging a communal tent, one where all the environmentally related committees sit together?
Yeah, I think if climate asks for a tent and we ask for a tent and we ask the organizers to put the two tents together, that gives us some space to work with. And then if Trails wants to come hang out with us because there are trails on conservation land, and we can, tell people, hey, there are trails on conservation land, you should appreciate our conservation land more and hike these trails.
So that implies that we should be reaching out to these other organizations, A, to let them know what we're thinking, and B, to try and get a commitment out of them, right?
And Anika, you're the chair, so you get to call it yourself.
Yeah, I know. I just want to share that in previous Friends and Family Day, I believe it's the Lions Club previously that would set up the whole venue and organize the tents in different rows. And so, but typically I think they did, I'm not saying conservation, so they set up where the conservation tent will be. We could request in the process, hey, you know what, can you put us close to trails or other groups?
Right.
Can put us next to the library, can put us next to.
I think that makes sense for us to ask for that and not count on them to think of it, just because there is, or there should be, more synergy there than we've had, at least in my time paying attention to this stuff. Now with Chuck being right-hand man on trails and what have you, and there are people we know on town forest, there's a chance here to get a little more togetherness, which would be helpful.
So I now know to go back to David Zeke and say, yep, we want a table. And then I guess it's cool for me to then reach out to the Lions and ask for a table for us. All right. So, and to ask for that table to be located next to Climate if at all possible. So, all right, cool.
I have a question. So Joe, I don't want to steal your thunder. You take any amount of work as you want, but I have a email from the Lions Club from Anna Dorgatti, who is saying just fill out this form and we'll be all set. So you could do that with David Zeke through that operation.
What I would love even better is to tell David Zeke that you are that Chuck is requesting a table, so then I don't have to do it. And I'll just tell him.
I have the email right here, and we can request a table next to other
next to I mean, Climate is the only one we know for sure is doing it, but so we can request that one and then reach out in parallel to other committees and see if
I will say one of the interesting things that I've seen happen over the years manning the tent at Friends and Family Day as part of conservation is sometimes logistically there is an advantage to being nested in the vicinity of other similar interests, but sometimes there's an advantage to being an outlier too, because when families and groups are walking around, sometimes they're walking towards a particular interest tent, like they've heard REI is giving out, they've got an amazing raffle or something that's going on. And so people are flocking there. And it's kind of like being at a kiosk at a mall, at the food court. and they walk past ours. And so sometimes it's okay. Sometimes people purposefully avoid certain booths. They're like,
that's a good idea.
it could
and-
work either way. I
and it
just
makes-
want to say,
Right, so I like that idea, which then made me think that perhaps the next step is then to say, everybody can have their own tents, but to invite them to have some material in our tent. So if they came in because of conservation and there they saw whatever climate is happening in their own tent, and if nothing else, you can steer them to the other people's. Again, to try and get some
to cross sell. I think if we can find out what's going on in their tents and we cross sell and we get them to cross sell over to us, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that sounds interesting, at least.
Okay.
And
All
I
right, so
think it sounds like we should request to be near the REI tent. Because conservation, REI, we're a good match, and they
We
might
are.
be drawing a lot more people to come past us.
And they have good raffles, I hear.
this is how rumors get started.
And I think they rented Matera Cabin once to do some staff development there.
There you go.
All right. Okay, so does this mean we don't even particularly want to request location? We just want to request a tent, and I can reach back out to David Zeke and say, we're requesting a tent. We haven't requested where, because it's kind of a win-win. If we're next to you, great. If we're not next to you, let's share. Let's send each other people. Let's cross-sell, as to use Nick's term.
It'd be nice. Here's my sense. It'd be nice to be nearby similar interests, not critical, but more importantly, it'd be valuable to find out.
Right. And
to
that's
coordinate ahead of time what they're doing. Maybe we could fill in a gap that they're not doing. We don't want to duplicate. We don't want to compete.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Do we have a date for Friends and Family Day?
We do. It's June 11th.
Thank you very much.
So I see.
So I'll reach out tomorrow and just say that we'd like a spot next to the Climate Committee and possibly REI.
And the slush tent. It's going to be warm.
That is how rumors start, Joe.
We're joking. Okay, Chuck, what else do we have?
So I wanted to let you know that I'm not going to talk about Corey Lane. I think that doesn't need to be discussed. But the community garden is off the ground and running. We cut down the trees today at Matera Cabin. Tomorrow the grading is going to happen. I had a kickoff meeting with the DPW. What's today? Wednesday, so Monday, and got some good feedback. We'll be going out there, just me, Ryan, and Jeff Cummings, who's the highway director, just to talk about what the first two tiers should look like, and then there's going to be an island as you enter. And one of the things that we could do with any money that we might get is get a new sign for Matera Cabin that says something about the community garden at Matera. Because the next time you pull into that area, you could see how bad the Matera Cabin sign is. And that's the one that's in the entrance. You drive past it on your way in and on your way out. I would also like you to know that our next meeting, that the community garden group is coming in with a request as detailed in the agreement, because now they want to put up a fence. They're coming in only to talk about the fence. And I think the plan is to have a lower fence of something that looks appropriate around the entire tier, but attach a pole to each section. And on that, so there's going to be a picket fence or something like that. And then with a pole that extends it up another 4 feet, and then to have some sort of deer fencing around that. they're terrified of deers and other animals. I think we should be terrified of the deers getting entangled and hawks and whatnot getting entangled in the deer fence. Not so sure about allowing a 7-foot tall fence, which is not going to be removed. Told them this. But the 3-foot fence seems appropriate. And you see that at most community gardens. And I think the deer and whatnot is just, I don't know what you're going to do about that. But anyways, do your research. If anyone can call some other community gardens and see how they've handled it. But, you know, if a deer got, so think of tier 1 being totally enclosed with a fence, with a deer fence on top of it, deer getting in somehow, and they're being wrapped up in the morning for someone to have to deal with. And that's my biggest fear. That could even be a groundhog or, you know, something else. But a deer would be pretty tragic. I think, you know, it's up to you, but those are my concerns. I forgot to do this. And wait a minute. This thing is so slow. Here we go. And tomorrow night there is a want to grow organic produce, help bees and butterflies, learn more about Reading's new community garden and how to get involved. Join a via Zoom meeting on Thursday, March 24th, 7:30 to 8. It's only a half hour. So they're going to do a shortened PowerPoint presentation. Brian Bowe said he already plans on going. I plan on going. I'm going to have to do a little bit of something about our online permit system. The town has an online permit system. Most of the contractors know this, and homeowners don't know this, because that's how you get your building permit and some of your conservation permits. This is also how you're going to get your gardener permit. So there's 16 spots available. It'll go live tomorrow afternoon. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll collect the applications, and the community garden group will choose who gets the garden spots. The 16 spots, 3 of those 16 are raised to 29 inches, and they're on a packed area. The rest of them are just garden beds that are on the ground on kind of a bark mulch area. So yeah, if you have any questions or want to be more involved because you're in care and custody of the Matera Cabin area and complex, you know, feel free to join us at that meeting.
Hey, Chuck, can you send this image around so we can get the Zoom link off the bottom of it?
You sure can, yeah. I will.
Great.
I think I sent it before though, but I'll send it again. Joe Conahan has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm realizing I'm gonna blame the time for having forgotten another thing about community outreach, which I don't think we need to do anything, but I want to mention that speaking of people sharing last names, after I reached out to David Zeke, Kathy Zeke reached out to me. Of course, we know her from Community Garden, expressing interest in cooperating with us at one of more of our future outreach events, basically sharing information about the community garden. Since I think the community garden is, you know, an appealing thing about, you know, the Matera area, you know, I think we should be proud of it and show it off. So sure, but just wanted to put that out there as another thing that we could potentially include.
It makes sense to me.
Great.
The only other thing that I wanted to mention is I have a meeting with Fidel a month from yesterday, and he wants me to put a budget together for approximately $3,000. So can I get permission to talk with Joe and maybe one other commission member to make sure that Joe is part of the budget, has been part of the budget already, but now we're being asked for specifics and what we would spend it on. There is so much out there to spend it on, from stain to paint Matera cabin, to the post and rail fence at the edge of the parking lot in Matera cabin, plexiglass for some of the broken kiosks, signage, painting signage, fixing signage. There's trees to be planted now that we've cut all the trees down at Matera. And believe me, these trees were at, they were older trees. They weren't producing anymore. Newer trees would be a better benefit in this area. But we do need a list, and we need to present that list just to Fidel at this point. Next year, our next fiscal year, Fidel would like an additional list that has to go in front of the select board, and for requests, and I'll get more information on that. But I think that we would have to come up with an additional ask on that. Unfortunately, none of the amounts that I've heard rise up to the level of the $10,000 that we needed to do the Bear Meadow study and some of the other work that needs to be done. I mean, as you walk around the town, more and more things need to be done. And the latest thing is someone wants to give us some land on right on the same street that Martha lives on. Sanborn Lane, and we need to get it surveyed, and it's in the neighborhood of $5,000, and the town can't survey it because the town doesn't have a licensed surveyor. So somehow, do we need this land? Does it really, this land, it's just tough. I mean, it'd be nice to get the land, but there's a problem with the lot lines. It has to be cleared up according to town council. We need a survey to proceed. We can't move forward. We don't have a budget. We can't pay for search. We can't plan to have it done in the next year. I can't tell the guy to wait 1 year and we'll have enough money to do this. There's all that. And it all stems from not having a budget and having deferred maintenance throughout town. And, no, we don't have deep pockets at all. We have nothing. And constantly I keep on telling people, because they ask, because it's getting more and more out there, and I'm glad everyone's talking about it, that conservation doesn't have a budget. We're looking for a budget because I'm getting questions about, don't you collect money? Where does that money go? Well, on the record, we get fees through our bylaw, and they're the, that's the 90% or 85% of the total fee is the bylaw fees. And they go directly into the general fund, and we never see those. They're just gone, and we don't use them for anything. We get state fees also. A state fee on each permit is usually $42.50. So under $50 for each permit, or it can be, if it's a big project, it could be like $120. So those fees, the state fees, which we're in control of because of the State Wetlands Protection Act, can only be used on office supplies, training, and my salary. Those fees in the beginning, when the legislation was written, was to take away what the towns were saying is we can't afford to have a conservation agent. And the fees paid for the conservation agent, so it's just stayed there. So those fees can't be used. And in this town and in other towns, it's quite typical for the town to ask for an offset. And you can remember voting on that in the last couple of years and last year, that we approve an offset of some portion of that money that's been collected to offset my salary. In some towns, it's $10,000, $20,000, whatever they're getting for fees, these bigger towns and these bigger undeveloped areas where there's a lot of work. But in Reading, it's usually about $3,000 or less. And, it's reasonable. And, there's been agreement to never leave us with no money. They understand that we're going to need a little bit for MACC conferences and things like I could buy mucks for my feet, right, to get out into the woods. I can get like foul weather gear. I could get tape measures, things like that. I could buy something for the office that we need to help facilitate that. Usually that's tracking software these days. Those things are appropriate, but it can't go to paint the garden, buy a split rail fence, grade out, buy pea stone for potholes. It can't go for any of that material. So that's what I usually tell people. A little bit, I give them a little bit shorter answer than that, but we're stuck. So anyways, I do appreciate all the comments, because I've been getting it back on the other side. And my opinion, it's great to have an avenue to be able to go to the town manager each year or each ask and say, this is what we want, do you deem it appropriate, and then get the money. But it would be much better for planning purposes to have a budget.
And Chuck, if I understand correctly, even if we were to start doling out fines, we wouldn't have access to the fine money either, correct?
We don't even have access for a tree policy money.
Yeah.
I think we could gain access for the tree policy money. But I think we could gain control of it. Complete control of all the money that comes into the tree policy. But from my conversation with town councils, we could only spend it on trees.
Right.
Which seems to be okay. I mean,
we like trees.
And again, we could ask for tree. I mean, like, if anyone asks us for anything, we could say, yeah, well, we can give you some money to plant some trees. But we could have the trees planted in Matera Cabin. But Mike Hannaford plants a lot of trees too. So I don't want to say, and so that's really the same purpose also. I don't know if we need all the money or some of the money, or we could do an offset to the town forest, not the town forest, but the forestry division of whatever we make. But it would be nice to have some money for our trees, you know, for where we want them, and to be in control of what happens. I mean, just think about Matera Cabin. You enter, there's an island. The community garden group is going to take care of the island on the entrance. That was an ask that I had. They're going to do the pollinator garden, and then they're going to start doing gardens up the hill. We could fix, if we had a budget, we could fix the split rail fence and plant that area. It's very soft up against the split rail fence, because when they're plowing, they're pushing, and that's very loose gravel in that area. But we could also plant in front of Matera Cabin. We could, you know, with the baseline study for Bear Meadow, it's going to come in with some recommendations for clearing, because I don't know if anyone knows this, but the fields used to be a lot bigger, and they've grown in, and things have taken off on their own. And so the fields could be pushed back, and who pays for that work, and how does that get accomplished? I mean, even if the DPW was doing it, sometimes they don't mind doing the labor, but, you know, in the future, something had to be purchased. That would be nice to be able to offer that to them. So anyways, there's just a lot, and I could just go on, but you can see it would be nice to have some money to, you know, have a nice spot at Matera
So it
Cabin.
sounds like we need to put a donation bucket out on the table when we have our tents. If nothing else,
I don't think it would hurt.
No,
You know
but
what's really funny? So funny
But to
enough,
educate
and
people
I don't
too.
know if someone did this on purpose. All right, and I'm really serious about that. But out of all the committees, the Conservation Commission is the only one that doesn't have a gift fund.
well, see, if nothing else, putting it out would prompt some people to ask, why do you have this? Don't you have a budget?
But you
We
can't
could say-
accept any money.
We could say,
You
no,
don't have a gift fund.
no, we don't. And some of them may actually call their congressman to say, get these poor folks a budget.
Yeah. So I did talk to Sharon Angstrom about that. And so anyways, the way that works is she just sets it up, but it's the town manager that would approve it. We never got that approval from Bob. So, you know, I could ask Fidel if he could do that. And then when gifts come in, we have to ask permission from the select board to accept them, and when we use the money, same, okay? So that's how that works. And I think that's consistent for everybody.
So actually, this is maybe a good point. Martha, do you want to tell everybody about Fidel's upcoming meeting?
Oh, sure. I read in the newspaper that tomorrow evening from 6 to 7 at the Tin Bucket, he will be meeting with members of the general public. So I thought I would drop in and have a chance to meet him. And you guys can come too.
So there's
Where's
plenty
the
of time
Tin
to go
Bucket?
there before the community gardens one.
I was just wondering where the Tin Bucket is for anyone that's listening.
Oh, sorry. The Tin Bucket is on Woburn Street, pretty much across the street from Town Hall. Next to the driveway that goes down into the CVS parking lot.
Probably saw, looked at it like 100,000 times. Didn't know it was there. Oh, great. That's great. Yeah, Fidel seems to be getting out a lot.
I was just going to say he had an event to meet the town manager and have coffee at the Y a couple weeks ago. I met him there myself. I mentioned conservation and the conservation budget. He told me he'd already been talking to Chuck, saying the same things Chuck is saying here. I did, ask about, Bear Meadow. It sounds like we don't yet have a solution for the bigger items, unfortunately. I'm still not sure what that is. Yes. Yeah. So that's, I guess, I'll stop there.
Okay.
Seems like there's hope, though. And Joe, I don't know if it was you, but anyways, this conversation has started, and it's good to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have talked with both Karen Herrick and Mark Doxer on the select board as well about, our budget situation, and in particular the bigger ticket things. So I don't think, again, I'm not sure what the how that will get funded. Though I'm generally much more, the fact that we're all talking about it makes me more optimistic that this could get into, next year's budget as a one-off expense potentially. And then I guess go ahead.
I was going to say, and these outreach activities, we can do some small amount of promotion about that as well. So we can talk about that further with that. And I think part of what Chuck's laundry list of what he's interested in getting money for is a sign of how old this problem is. There's a backlog there's a terrific backlog, and now, which means when we get the money, we should be really thoughtful in prioritizing, the biggest bang for the buck to meet, what we know needs to be met, and then some sort of projection of where we're thinking of heading if more funds become available. So, I think making sure that
exactly what's needed. Absolutely.
Yeah.
so that we can relay to the public that we've thought this through. We're not just asking for money to ask for money. And we've got targeted uses that are going to benefit people directly as they use the trails and use conservation areas. So I think we can keep the momentum going, and I think that would be great. I do want to move on with the meeting because I saw Martha yawn. That's two. And so I do want to move on with the meeting. I think it's really important to have these discussions, though. That's why I didn't cut in earlier. So, Chuck, what other urgent stuff do you have on the old new business? Or am I fishing for a motion to adjourn?
We got to talk about that tree in Pinevale. Can I ask about that tree at Pinevale? Because holy moly, that tree in Pinevale.
There was a police report that somebody was out there cutting trees in Pinevale because they thought it was a danger to the trail. And you went out, Joe. Sounds like you went out with Officer O'Brien. Sounds like he didn't have the safety puppy with him. That's too bad.
I've not yet met the puppy that is the talk of the town, but
Ridiculous.
yes, it was actually Officer Mike Lee was the responding officer on Sunday morning. I guess someone who was hiking in Pine Vale on Sunday morning saw a person attempting to cut down a large tree with a handheld hatchet. They called the police, which is what I would have done in the same situation. Officer Mike Lee was a responding officer. Talked with the person, got their name and address, and then I think they reported to the Sergeant O'Brien, who reached out to Chuck. And so I spoke with Sergeant O'Brien on the phone, and I met Officer Lee at Pine Vale. Took some pictures, which I shared with the commission.
I saw those.
So the tree is leaning towards the trail. It is leaning on a couple of other trees, at least 2 other trees it's currently leaning on. So I did not agree with the assessment that the residents' assessment that this was an urgent thing that needed to be cut down on Sunday morning. It may in fact need to be cut down eventually, but I mean that was I don't even know if that's a conversation that Chuck, do you need any input from the commission on that or not, or is that just it's one tree, so whatever?
Tree's down. I sent Mike out there to evaluate it, and I told him that I thought it was dangerous, and he took it down right away.
Awesome. All right. Well, that part of the problem is solved.
I saw in the email that the police wanted to know how to classify the violation, and I really felt like that was outside of our purview.
A later email, they just dropped it. It's up to the commission to pursue this.
And we didn't catch anybody anyway, but.
Well, it's up to us based on our regulations.
Right. I mean, we know who the person is, so there's no sort of, it's not a question. It's, we don't need Sherlock Holmes here or anything. It is a question of whether we think this was a problem or what's a problem that whether it's a problem we should do anything about. I think it's a problem to have people look like, I feel like I can state that unambiguously, like people cutting down trees in Pine Vale without asking is a problem, or any other conservation land. Do we want to do anything about it in this case? It's unclear to me. I mean,
you said you know who it is.
The police gave a name and address. It's not a name that was familiar to me, and I've already forgotten it. Although I think.
Well, that's okay. You don't have to review.
I thought they said we had to do a request for.
Oh, they did say yes. They asked. That's right. So they said.
Well.
Yeah. So we could get the name of the person if we wanted to.
I don't know necessarily if we want to go knocking on their door, but part of me, and I hope I'm not saying this because it's so late and I'm kind of lost some of my reason capability, but part of me is curious if the police could follow up with a knock on the door and say, I don't know what their follow-up is of how they can ensure it's not going to happen again. Because there is some shared interest that neither the police nor us want people doing that. So how did they, I guess that's my question is how did they handle that?
They asked us to follow up. Yeah. That's how they handled it. They expect us to follow up on it.
I don't want to go knocking on this person's door.
Why?
Besides the part where they have a hatchet, I mean,
I
have to correct the joke.
I just don't want
it. It might be, this person might be very energetic. So I think it's just very typical of anything that's ever happened. So we'll get the address. Brian will write a letter. We'll send it to him, invite him to the meeting, try to figure out what's happened, tell him the proper procedure that if he thinks the tree's a danger. I mean, don't forget about the sign. If he took the time to make a sign, put it out in front of the tree.
Yes.
And then go to sleep early and then wake up early enough to cut the tree down before whatever else he had to do that day. I think, there might be a
Robin Hood
claim
situation.
that this has really bothered this person and it was actually a dangerous tree. But there's a proper way to get it taken down.
I would think if you're a criminologist, you might put that off to organized behavior and ability to plan.
Maybe we should invite that person to join the trails committee and help with their trail work.
Put that effort to a constructive end.
They might need better tools.
Maybe.
But
okay.
yeah,
Well,
I mean,
I appreciate that approach of
yeah,
having Brian do it. I really do
Yeah, I
want to
mean,
wrap this up because I think we're,
Yeah, do we even need to invite this person, or is it just, should we send them a letter to be like, hey, next time you're concerned about something on the trails, here's who you reach out to?
I
Yeah,
think
Why
some
we wouldn't
dialogue.
wanna- wouldn't want to invite them. I mean, all
I
the
think some-
information you can have in the, you can have all the information about the proper procedures and blah, blah, blah. And then say, come to the meeting. If they don't come to the meeting, I don't know if anything's lost, but,
I mean,
I personally would like to meet him. That's,
if he-
I
if
think-
he
Okay,
did come-
very well.
If he did come to the meeting, it would be a short segment. And all it might do is reinforce to him that we really don't want him to do it. So maybe there's a gain. As Chuck said, worst case, he doesn't show and we say, fine. Hey, but,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
perfect. Are
if
you
you-
okay with doing that, Brian?
oh yeah, I love writing
Okay.
letters.
Well, let's do that. And Chuck, what else is on our agenda?
No, I was gonna say, if you came to the meeting, we could, cut right to the chase and cut through the red tape and cut, right to the point.
I see your repetitive use of that word. What's next on the agenda?
We could chop this thing right down at the roots and.
Can I
I
get
would
an
like
bottom.
to know what meeting he's coming to. Will it be hybrid or still virtual? That's what I would like to put on our
Oh.
agenda. At what point can we go back to hybrid meetings?
We will find.
Oh, come
think
on,
that's
just
to
tell them
me.
what you told me. Don't beat around the
What I'd
bush.
like to do as much as possible is to stick with Zoom until
We
we
can't.
don't have to anymore.
Okay.
I'm fine
That's
with
that's
that.
my preference. If
Sure.
you strongly disagree, I welcome that feedback and that discussion. Get in touch with me and let me know.
Okay, so our next meeting will still be Zoom.
Yes.
Okay,
Do we
For
know?
now,
of
everyone
a-
agrees, but if we get some direction from the town manager, I'll let you know. But that seems to be fine for now.
Okay. What's the last bit on the agenda? Is there anything else, Chuck?
Cut to the chase and get a motion to adjourn.
How about we cut our losses and get a motion to adjourn?
All right, I move to adjourn.
I'll
Is there a
second
second?
that.
All
Everybody.
those in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
so Anika, you just barely made your promise.
Recording
by 11.
stopped.
Tell you.
All right.
Herding cats? No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was so tired tonight too.
All right, guys, we'll see you later. I'll end this.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye.
And I go.